regarding the Calway's opposing
Councillor Vicente checking in.
Thank you, Councillor Vicente. You're coming through loud and clear. Councillor Medeiros, can we just test your mic, please?
Hi, Peter.
Thank you. You're coming through loud and clear as well. Thank you.
Members of that are here in chambers, I know that the underground is under construction, and people are having to come from the West Tower. We normally start at right at 7 o'clock, which that's what time I always want to start at. But we are going to give them a couple more minutes because we do hear there's people trickling over. Okay, so give them another 5 minutes before we get going. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I know that there's probably some people still trickling in from West Tower because our underground here is under construction, so we might have people just trickling in. I'd like to ask everybody to make sure that their cell phones are inaudible, is on silent, mute, please. We're going to have a lot of delegations tonight. It's always tough for anybody to come up and delegate and to have any kind of background noise. We want to respect everybody's words when they're before committee. As we begin today's meeting, we'd like to acknowledge that we are gathering here today on the treaty territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We'd also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to Planning and Development Committee meeting. I'll begin today for the roll call. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Present.
Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Vicente. Councillor Vicente. Come back to you. Councillor Quabra.
Present.
Thank you, Councillor Vicente. Councillor Keenan.
Present.
Councillor Medeiros.
Present.
Councillor Fortini. Councillor Tour. Councillor Power. Mayor Brown as ex officio is not online. We have the approval of the agenda. Councillor Keenan will move that. I don't see anybody on the board except for our clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to members of the committee, just a few updates since the revised agenda was published just after 4 o'clock today. In regards to item 6.3, which are delegations regarding item 5.2 on the agenda, application to amend the official plan, KLM Planning Partners, on behalf of Metro Central Properties, 0 Steeles Avenue West in Ward 4. We have an added delegation from Kulveer Singh Gill. Item 11.1, which is correspondence, and 11.2, which is correspondence regarding items 5.3 and 5.2 on today's agenda, and those are the items that are on the north and south side of Steeles Avenue at Financial. There is additional correspondence from Diane Maxworth and Manjeet. And finally, for item 11.6, correspondence regarding statutory public notice item 5.4 on today's agenda, application to amend the zoning bylaw, official plan and draft plan of subdivision, Blackburn Development Corporation, 9874 The Gore Road. There's additional correspondence from Michael Gagnon, Gagnon Walker Domes, and those matters will be distributed to members of committee. And I should also point out, my apologies, delegation item 6.1 from Colin Chung from Glenn Schnarr and Associates has withdrawn his delegation. His delegation was not on a specific item, but was generally in regards to planning fees and planning fees bylaw 85-96 as amended. So that's withdrawn.
Perfect. What I might do is, because we do have, we have many delegations on many items, except for 6.7, the delegation for the heritage minutes. So I know Don Arthur is here, and I might ask him to come up first, because I know it's going to be extremely short. Before you can stay there, Don, but I have to go through some of the statutory public meeting first and some of the other items. So the approval as revised has been moved by Councillor Keenan. All in favor? That carries. Declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none. Any online? Our consent agenda, our consent motion, I'm going to go straight to 8.1. Anybody that would like to hold item 8.1, which is the first set of Brampton Heritage Board minutes? Seeing none, that's the only item that's up for consent. Been moved by Councillor Tour. The consent agenda, all in favor? That carries. We have statutory public meetings, 5 of them. 5.5 is statutory public meeting presentation, application to amend the zoning bylaw and official plan, CanDevCon Limited, 8320 Goreway Drive, Ward 8, to permit 2 mixed-use buildings, 18 and 19 stories in height, again at 9320 Gorewood Drive. Goreway Drive. Is there anybody in the audience here today to hear the presentation on that item? Again, it's 8320 Goreway Drive. 9320 Goreway Drive, in Ward 8, 2 mixed-use buildings, 18 and 19 stories. Anybody here to hear a presentation on that item? That item is adjourned. And with 11.5, the correspondence, been moved by Councillor Councillor Power, for receipt of that item. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is we're going to go to Don Arthur, Brampton resident, on the Brampton Heritage Board minutes. Don, you have 5 minutes, but I'm going to give you 2.
Sounds great. Quite simply, it's a heritage application for a severance in the village of Churchville. We're not trying to set new precedents here. This has been done many times in the past. In the village core, there are 5 new rebuilds, 2 extensive renovations. Heritage staff did not identify any negative heritage impacts, nor did the board, nor did our heritage expert, which is supported by a heritage impact assessment on the property. Beyond that, I can go into a lot of detail, but I don't think you guys want to hear that today, so I'll leave it with you.
So Don, precedent's been set. This isn't setting precedents.
No.
Members of council in Churchville, we have a heritage plan, a heritage area. I know it very well. I am a firm believer in not setting precedents. If this is not setting precedents, then it's something that I would like to, I'd like another look at. I'd like the opportunity to support a referral to council on August the 9th. Oh, I'm happy to move that. Any questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so then the motion would be referring just the recommendation HB 048, 2023 to council on August 9th?
Absolutely,
With
yep,
the balance to be considered tonight?
for sure. So, and I'll go ahead and move the Brampton Heritage Board minutes and that referral of that one specific item. All in favor? That carries. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, first statutory public meeting is a presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw, Avalon Developments, Weston Consulting, 137 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 4, to facilitate the development of 2 mixed-use high-rise buildings on a shared podium in the northern portion of the property, 137 Steeles Avenue West. Edwin is here. Edwin is not here. Angela was here. Okay. Hi, Edwin.
Thank you, Chair. All right, good evening, members of the public, committee members, Chair and Vice Chair of the Planning Committee. My name is Angelo Embrico, and I am one of the managers here at Development Services at the City of Brampton. The purpose of tonight's public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Weston Consulting on behalf of Avalon Developments, Inc. Next slide, please. The subject site is located on the south side of Steeles Avenue West, west of Huron-Ontario Street, as shown on the location map on the screen. The subject property is municipally known as 137 Steeles Avenue West, and it is located in Ward 4. Next slide, please. So the map on screen shows an overview of the site and its surrounding land uses. To the north, there are existing high-rise apartments, and to the northwest is Brampton Shoppers World, which is also subject to a development application. To the south, there are vacant lands, beyond which is Malta Avenue and existing single detached dwellings. To the east, there are vacant lands in Lancashire Lane. There's an existing Superstore supermarket just to the east of the property. To the west, there are vacant lands, and beyond which are 2 active construction sites for high-rise residential buildings, including projects from I2 Developments and Brixton Developments at the corner of Malta and Steeles. And one thing I'd like to note is that the property falls within the limits of a major transit station area and the future Huron-Ontario LRT, which will be located just to the west of the property near Brampton's existing Gateway Transit Terminal. Next slide, please. A closer look at the subject property is shown on screen. You'll note that there's two outlines of the property. So the lavender color outline is a portion of the entire subject property. The portion of the property that is subject to the zoning bylaw application is outlined in red. The applicant has chosen to only proceed with the first phase of their development plans, which again is shown on the northern limits of the site, outlined in the red rectangular shape. The site is mostly vacant right now and is currently occupied by a single detached dwelling. Next slide, please. On screen, you'll see a series of site visit photos that were taken on July 26, which shows the existing condition of the property along Steeles Avenue West. You'll see on screen a view from the west side of the site, which shows the existing detached dwelling on the property. A view from the site facing south to the right of the screen. Next slide, please. On screen, you'll also see a few additional pictures. One with the view north to the site on the right side of the screen. You'll see the existing high-rise apartments to the north, as noted earlier, and as well a view from the west side of the site. Next slide, please. So an application has been submitted to amend the zoning bylaw to facilitate the development of two mixed-use high-rise apartment buildings on a shared podium. The development is to be serviced by an interim access road on Steeles Avenue West. A tertiary plan and a draft plan of subdivision is also required to facilitate phase one of the project and its eventual full build-out for phase two. Next slide, please. More specific details of the phase one plans are as follows. There are a total of 1,147 residential units and 1,622 square meters of ground floor retail space in the development. The unit mix is approximately 41% one and one plus den bedroom units, 55% two bedroom units, and 5% three bedroom units. The application is proposing building heights of 45 and 50 stories. The buildings are located on a 6-story podium. The proposal has a floor space index of 11.98. The floor space index is the ratio of the building area to the site area. And there are a total of 640 parking spaces contained in 4 levels of underground parking. Next slide, please. Prior to staff finalizing recommendations and advancing a final recommendation report to council, the application will be further evaluated for compliance with the Planning Act, consistency with the provincial policy statement, and conformity to the growth plan for the Great and Golden Horseshoe, conformity to the Region of Peel official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, and the Huron-Ontario Main Corridor secondary plan. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated residential in the City of Brampton official plan, which does permit a full range of housing types, including apartments. An official plan amendment is not required to facilitate this development. Next slide, please. The property is also located within the Huron-Ontario Main Corridor secondary plan. It is designated Mixed Use 1 in the secondary plan, which permits a variety of uses, including high-density apartments. The Mixed Use 1 designation limits density to a floor space index of 4.0 and a maximum building height of 25 stories. Any proposed increase in height and density is required to go through a zoning bylaw amendment for this application. As per the policies of Section 5.1.1 of the secondary plan, an amendment to the secondary plan is not required for increased height and density. Next slide, please. The subject property is currently zoned agricultural in the city's zoning bylaw. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. So the proposed development is seeking a residential 4 R4 designation for the northern portion of the property. The proposed zoning bylaw includes site-specific performance standards, including a maximum height of 50 stories, as well as minimum front yard, side yard, and rear yard setbacks to protect for future development interests for neighboring landowners. The performance standards within the zoning bylaw will be further refined prior to staff advancing a future recommendation to council. Next slide, please. There are a few land use matters that staff continue to work through with the applicant. This includes the appropriateness of the project's built form and how the proposal fits into the broader Gateway Terminal major transit station area. We are also looking at options for site access, including an interim access and additional details on the longer-term full build-out of public and private roads for the tertiary plan. This also includes the future extension of Malta Avenue. We're also considering future development phasing considerations, including the location, size, and orientation of a future public park. And lastly, we are looking to finalize the tertiary plan for the area with the supporting studies and further consultation with neighboring landowners. City staff will be looking to require an endorsed tertiary plan prior to finalizing recommendations to council for this application. The tertiary plan limits have been identified for this site as the area is bound by Steeles Avenue to the north, Lancashire Lane to the east, and Malta Avenue to the west, and initial discussions have taken place with the neighboring landowners. Next slide, please. Just to get a sense of where we're at with this application. The application was deemed complete on June 15th, 2023, in accordance with the requirements under the Planning Act. Since that time, staff has circulated the application materials to internal and external departments for comment. Today, we are at the statutory public meeting. As I mentioned earlier, the purpose of this meeting is to share information to the public and provide an opportunity for members of the public to express any concerns or comments they have on the application. Following this meeting, the applicant will be required to continue to work through all technical matters associated with the site, including a submission of a tertiary plan and a draft plan of subdivision prior to any recommendation report being advanced to council. Staff will also follow up with any members of the public or other stakeholders who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. So all the application materials associated with this development application can be found on Brand Plan Online. They're all accessible there, and if you need any more information about how to access these materials, you can contact the city planner directly. Next slide, please. On screen is some contact information provided. The city planner is Edwin Lee. His contact information is on screen. You can also reach out to me directly. My name is Angelo Ambrico. There's also contact information from the applicant available on screen here. Next slide, please. And thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Angelo. So next, members of committee, we are going to go to the delegations for item 5.1, which is 6.4, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Avalon Developments, care of Weston Consulting, 137 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 4. Before we get into delegations, we've done some quick math, and there's a lot of delegations on tonight. Hearing all delegations you have up to 5 minutes. That puts us well over midnight tonight for this meeting. So that being said, if I find that delegations are starting to repeat what previous delegations had said, I might try and encourage you to add something new or to move along. We want to hear everybody. These items are not city-initiated items unless they say specifically city-initiated items. None of them on today's agenda are city-initiated items. It is every landowner's right to come before the city to apply for any type of development. We have not seen a staff report. We've not looked into we have no decisions on the matter. Tonight is strictly for you and you only, and for us to hear from you. That's what we're here for. We don't make any decisions tonight. After we hear from you, staff collect all of the questions and information that you want, and they put that into the report. That report comes before planning, and that's when planning committee will make a recommendation, to council, and council makes the decision on the matter. So that being said, I do have some delegations on this. I have 5 delegations in total, 3 of which seem to be part of the application process. So what I might do is ask for those 3 to come up behind the 2 Brampton residents, unless any in particular have a actual report that there are slides that they would like the residents to see prior to them asking questions. So I'll go to, I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the first delegation's been withdrawn. The second from Martin
Okay.
Kwar-Kupome from Weston Consulting, I understand is present and may have a presentation. if
Where's
they
Martin?
still wish to do it.
Martin, would you like to present before the public has opportunity to ask questions? Okay, come on down, Martin.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Martin Kwar-Kupome, and I'm a Vice President and Land Use Planner with Weston Consulting. I'm here on behalf of Avalon Developments, Inc. to present their development proposal for 137 Steeles Avenue West. I do have a presentation prepared for this evening. I will note that a few of my slides are repetitive to what Angela had presented, so what I'll do is skip over those a bit more quicker, because I'm sure you've got the gist of those slides, and focus a bit more on the development plan and the tertiary plan process. Next slide, please. So as noted, the subject lands for this proposal are a portion of the overall site. What we have here in the black dotted line is the portion of the property that's subject to this rezoning application. The stats are on the slide here, but in terms of the site area, we have just over 6,000 square meters, which will be rezoned to facilitate the development of 2 towers, heights of 50 and 45 stories, atop a 6-story podium. Next slide, please. So on this slide illustrates the breakdown and design of the ground floor plan. What you see in orange there is the retail component of the ground floor podium. So the majority of the ground floor is comprised of commercial uses, retail uses, and we have a temporary access, which was mentioned before by staff, that comes off of Steeles Avenue to the east of the property. This is temporary in nature to provide access up until the road systems that are proposed through the tertiary plan are constructed and built, and after that point, that access will be decommissioned and will become a pedestrian access only. So the phase 1 development proposed here will have access to Steeles initially, and then as lands develop around us and as the roads are built, the access will be closed and become pedestrian focused. The orange portion, kind of in the center to the left of the ground floor plan, is the lobby area, which is just off of that ring internal road. And there are access points to the underground garage, which is 4 levels of underground on the southern portion of the phase 1 building. Next slide, please. So this I'll go through quickly, but more so the image on the right, which identifies the boundaries of the Gateway Terminal and MTSA. The subject property is highlighted there in red, which shows its location in terms of its location to the intersection of Steeles and Here, Ontario. As noted earlier, Here, Ontario has plans for an LRT system, which is currently being constructed, and then the rapid transit, bus rapid transit's available on Steeles to the east and west of the property. So this site is in prime location for growth intensification as directed by the province and the region. Next slide, please. I think I'll skip over this slide, which outlines the land use permissions from the secondary plan, and spend a bit more time on this one. So this slide identifies the phase 1 property in relation to our neighboring properties to our east and west, which form the tertiary plan boundary. So you can see how the phase 1 proposal fits into the larger plan. You'll see developments already been approved. That's to the far west of the property at Steeles and Malta, and the remaining lands are vacant right now because they don't have an approved development plan for it. But what we have shown are a couple new roads and private roads that will connect Malta from the northwest to the southeast. As development comes on board, everyone will provide their share of this connection, similar to the Lancashire Lane extension from the east to future Malta extension. A good portion of that road extension is part of the Phase 2 lands of the subject lands, and through a future development application, the approved tertiary plan, we will be required to submit a draft plan of subdivision to create those new roads and dedicate those to the city. Part of that process will include the creation of a new public park. The location and size of that is still being worked through with staff, but generally on the secondary plan, it's mostly south of the Lancashire line extension to the south of that. And just to the north, on the south side of the Phase 1 development, we have a new private east-west road that's going to connect, again, provide additional connection throughout this community. This new road will be a private condo road, but we'll have public easements on it to allow for connections, not just for the residents of this proposal, but for the community as a whole. And if you can recall the ground floor plan that had the commercial layout on it, it identified the commercial on both sides on Steeles and what we hope to have that new east-west connection. I do see that my time is up. I think I've gotten out what I wanted to say for the most part, but as questions do come up, I'm here for questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the public and committee.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Martin. Our next delegation is Marco Jurasek.
Marco is with the ownership group, and he's available for questions, but I don't believe he's making a delegation.
Perfect, thank you. Our next delegation is Gabriel Varaj.
Thank you.
Gabriel,
And through you, Mr. Chair, Gabriel's online, so we're just going to unmute his microphone.
this looks like Gabriel coming down.
Oh, okay.
It looks like a Gabriel. Welcome, Gabriel, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Gabriel Virag. I'm a resident of 128 Sheldrake Court. Before I continue, can I have the original slide from the initial presentation showing the context of the site, please?
For sure.
Whoever's controlling it. The next one down, please, the axle. Yeah. Is it possible to zoom in on the map? Yeah, that's perfect, okay. So the original site is, it's a farmhouse, beautiful meadows, wildflowers growing, but things are changing. Development is happening, and that is the way of things that are growing, right? The skyline is changing. We live at Sheldrake Court, which is a cul-de-sac on the south side at the intersection of Steeles and McMurtry. It's just located northwest of the development. There are these two existing towers right now, which when I count, it's about 20 floors and a cast a shadow, as you can see on the slide here. Our concern on the south side of Sheldrake Court is these two towers right now, which are 45 and 50, what kind of a shadow will it cast on the existing residents of Sheldrake Court? What we are interested in seeing is some kind of a diagram, site context, text map that shows the shadows cast by these two towers in the winter and in the summer. We just want to make sure that we are not going to be affected by the new heights. For us, it would be the morning sunrise. But I don't want to speak for the residents on the south side of the development, but they should also be notified of potential shadows being cast in the afternoon sun. Right now, the sun's setting in the summer, it's going to be in that direction. So that's all that we ask. So with this consideration for the new height or the ask and potential future developments, I understand at the Connect Towers, there's a 37 and 26-story tower going up over there. And there's two towers right now existing going up on the south side of Steeles and Sheldrake, Steeles and McMurtry. One is, I believe, 40 stories. And the other one on the west end, I'm not sure how tall that is. I haven't seen anything. But if we could kind of see the skyline with the shadows that it's casting, and just to make sure that we are not affected, that's all we ask for. And if there is a shadow, is it possible that a shadow zone could be established where, in terms of the massing of the tower, I understand right now it's probably just masses, not actual forms, but to establish a zone in the mass where if the development, as the design develops, goes beyond that vertical plane, then it would cast a shadow, at least for our residents over there. So at least that way it could control or give a guide as to stay within the sandbox so it doesn't affect the neighboring properties. That's all I have to say. Yes, there is going to be other issues for sure with the development, but it needs to be progressed, right? So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Just to staff, will there be a shadow impact study that's going to be completed prior to?
And I just want to, sorry to cut you off, it's summertime and wintertime as well.
Mr. Chair, yes, you're correct. So staff are requiring the submission of shadow, as we do as well, a number of other studies. All of those are available online, as Angelo had mentioned, to all residents, anybody wanting to see those. But any residents can reach out to Edwin Lee, who's the planner on file, for some assistance in accessing those pieces of information.
So Gabriel, you reach out to Edwin. Edwin will walk you through that specific study about where are the shadows, and it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's summer, it's winter, it's hourly.
Is there a, can you spell his name please for me?
I'll get Edwin just to step back and talk to you in a minute.
Wonderful. Do you mind doing it now?
Our next delegation is Sylvia Roberts. Sylvia, come on down. Welcome, Sylvia.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I live in Peel Village. I travel right by this area relatively frequently. Correction for the planners, it is not a superstore, it is now a No Frills. That changed a couple weeks ago, so I'm not sure. I'm rather forgiving on that. I do have a couple of questions about things, concerns with the site, and also why staff did not raise them. If you check the architectural plans, it says accessible parking card 16. I checked the plans. I did not see a single accessible parking space out of 640. That's slightly concerning. If there were no parking spaces in this development, I could see why there's 0 of 0. But if there's 640, to have 0 out of 640 is a bit problematic for accessibility purposes. That doesn't agree with the official plan. And so on that, the applicant needs to fix that before their zoning bylaw amendments are given. Additionally, while I did fight for reducing the resident parking spaces for cars, this is a bit short on the bike parking. Specifically on bike parking, where is that? Yes. So it says the bike parking required is 1,147 bike parking spaces. There are a grand total of 0 in the development. That's a significant variance of 1,147 bike parking spaces. And I would be interested to see how the developer came to the conclusion that the site did not need any accessible parking, and how it also decided that in one of the cores of the city, the uptown core, that not a single bike parking space was appropriate. I'm sure there's a number of councilors who would also be interested in seeing that, because that doesn't seem to fit in line with the current official plan, the zoning bylaws, or the draft official plan they're working on, because we're supposed to have cycling as something we encourage. And we have the active transportation master plan to encourage active transportation. If I'm a resident in this building, how can I own a bike if there's no place to store my bike? So,
Thank you very much for the questions. Staff will take all those questions and respond by way of the staff report. It's been moved by Councillor Keenan, staff presentation, receipt of the staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw, Avalon Developments. Oh yeah, that's right. Is there anybody else in the audience today that would like to delegate on this item? Anybody at all that would like to come down and delegate on this specific item here today? It's been moved by Councillor Keenan, staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw, Avalon Developments and Weston Consulting, 137 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 4, to facilitate the development of 2 mixed-use high-rise buildings on a shared podium in the northern portion of the property in item 6.4, the delegations on the item, 11.4, the correspondence on the items been received. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is 5.2, staff presentation, application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, KLM Planning Partners, on behalf of Metro Central Properties, Inc., 0 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 4, to facilitate the development of a mixed-use, high-density transit supportive development within the Mississauga Road, Steeles Avenue primary major transit area. We do have Emma that will also be presenting today on item 5.3, staff presentation, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, KLM Planners Partners on behalf of Metro Central Properties, 1735 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 6. The development of a mixed-use, high-density transit supportive development within the Mississauga and Steeles Avenue primary major transit station, 1735. So 2 separate applications, but Emma's going to, because she's such a good planner, she's going to put them all together. Thanks, Emma. Take it away.
Good evening, members of council, city staff, and members of the public. My name is Emma DeMello, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject applications. The purpose of the statutory public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by KLM Planning Partners, Inc. on behalf of the owner, Metro Central Properties Limited. The applications under file numbers OZS 2023-0014 and OZS 2023-0015 form a comprehensive development, and both applications will be discussed in this presentation. Next slide, please. The subject property for application OZS 2023-0014 is in Ward 4, and the subject application under number OZS 2023-0015 is in Ward 6, municipally known as 1735 Steeles Avenue West. Both applications are located in the Steeles at Mississauga Road major transit station area. Next slide, please. This is an air photo of the site located at 0 Steeles Avenue West. The site abuts Olivia Marie Road to the north, beyond which are townhouses and single detached residential homes. To the south are vacant lands subject to the application south of Steeles Avenue West under file number OZS 2023-0015. To the east is Financial Drive, low-density residential uses, and commercial uses at the northeasterly corner of Steeles Avenue West and Financial Drive. To the west is Mississauga Road and the Canon Canada corporate headquarters. Next slide, please. This is an air photo of the site located south of Steeles Avenue at 1735 Steeles Avenue West. The site borders Steeles Avenue to the north, beyond which are the lands subject to the application under file number OZS 2023-0014, and beyond that, low-density residential uses. Jimmy McCarran Pond is located to the south, as well as townhouses and single detached homes. To the east is Financial Drive, as well as low-density residential and commercial uses. And to the west are vacant lands zoned for commercial uses and a gas station at the northeasterly corner of Steeles Avenue West and Mississauga Road. Next slide, please. This is another photo of the 2 sites and a general view of the surrounding land uses. These subject properties are currently vacant. There is existing transit services along Steeles Avenue West, Mississauga Road, and Financial Drive, and Steeles Avenue is a rapid transit corridor. Next slide, please. The proposal north of Steeles Avenue contemplates the development of a 16.7 hectare site with 15 residential apartment buildings containing 3,809 residential units. Ground floor retail is proposed totaling 1,286 square meters, or 13,842 square feet. Buildings are proposed to be 16 stories. The applicant is also proposing 4 blocks of 4-story stacked back-to-back townhouses with 120 townhouse units. The proposal includes 2 5-story office buildings fronting Mississauga Road, and 1 transitional office building is proposed fronting Steeles Avenue, with flexible permissions for future office or residential uses. The applicant is proposing 5 parks in addition to 2 privately owned public spaces. And the proposed floor space index, which is the ratio of the gross floor area of the buildings to the area of the lot, is 3.05. Next slide, please. The proposed development south of Steeles Avenue West contemplates the development of 4 residential apartment buildings containing 740 residential units. Ground floor retail is proposed totaling 330 square meters, or 3,552 square feet. Building heights of 16 stories are proposed for the residential apartment buildings. The applicant is also proposing 1 block of 4-story stacked back-to-back townhouses with 28 residential units. 1 public park is proposed, and the floor space index is 2.85 times the area of the site. Next slide, please. The subject applications will be reviewed for consistency with the various planning tools, including the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel and City of Brampton official plans, and the Bram West Secondary Plan. Next slide, please. The lands north of Steeles Avenue are designated office and residential in the official plan, and the lands south of Steeles Avenue are designated office and open space in the official plan. The properties are also located in Steeles at Mississauga Road, primary major transit station area. An amendment to the official plan is required for the proposed development. Next slide, please. The site is within the boundaries of the Bram West Secondary Plan, Chapter 40C. The secondary plan designates the northerly property office center and low and medium density residential, and the southerly property is designated office center. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to permit the proposed developments. Next slide, please. The northerly parcel is designated office center in the sub-area 40-1 block plan, and the southerly parcel is designated future office and retail in the sub-area 40-2 block plan. An amendment to the block plans is required to permit the proposals. Next slide, please. The subject property north of Steeles Avenue is zoned Office Center, Section 2027, which permits office, hotel, conference center, and other service and employment-related uses. And the parcel south of Steeles Avenue is zoned Agricultural, Section 2561, which permits agricultural and garden center uses. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to permit the proposed developments. Next slide, please. As such, the applicant is proposing to amend the zoning bylaw from the current office center and agricultural zones. The applicant is proposing minor amendments to the existing office center, Section 2027 zone, for the proposed office buildings fronting Mississauga Road. In addition, 2 proposed residential apartment zones and an office mixed-use residential townhouse zone and an open space zone. Next slide, please. Issues and opportunities identified to date include the following. With respect to built form, compatibility, and layout, establishing the appropriate built form and building patterns, including building height, massing, setbacks, and site layout, the contribution to the public realm and vision for Steeles Avenue West, the creation of complete 15-minute neighborhoods, as well as the confirmation of the appropriate size and location of public parks and amenity spaces. With respect to servicing and public roads, a subdivision plan to ensure the delivery of public roads and necessary infrastructure to service the development, and ensuring the appropriate net increase to the total jobs planned for the area. And timing of the proposed development with city-initiated amendments to the Bram West Secondary Plan. Next slide, please. This application was deemed complete as of June 16th, 2023. It was then circulated to commenting departments and agencies. Public notice of this meeting was posted in The Guardian and those within 240 meters of the proposed developments were notified by mail. The next steps in this application are that staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments. Issues raised will be addressed in the future recommendation report, and staff will advance a final recommendation report to council for a decision. And staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposed development. Next slide, please. For more information on the development proposal, the applicant's submission materials, including architectural plans, drawings, and supporting studies, are publicly accessible through the city's Brand Plan online portal. Instructions are shown on the screen here. Next slide, please. The report and presentation associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The final recommendation report will be posted on the city's website in advance of the future meeting. My name is Emma DeMello, and my contact information here is on the screen, along with the contact information for the applicant, Mr. Keith McKinnon from KLM Planning Partners, Inc. And Mr. McKinnon is present this evening and available should committee members have any questions regarding the proposal. Next slide, please. Thank you. If there are any verbal delegations for this item tonight, please do note in your delegation which application your comments pertain to. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you, Emma. So now we'll be going to the delegations for item 6.3. Number 3, Keith McKinnon and the KLM partner Darren Steedman have been put on to the last, representing the applicants. So, but our first delegation, Sean Bagwandin. Sean?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe Sean is virtual. Sean, you're on the session. You can unmute your microphone. You have up to 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Council, for taking this time to allow us to properly consult on this topic. I do, as a resident, a longtime resident of Brampton, and a resident of someone directly affected by this proposed change, and I'm talking about Zero Steeles Avenue. I guess are the residential high density residential units that are being proposed there. I do want to voice some concerns about that. The impact that it's going to have on the neighbors, my neighbors, myself and my neighbors. We've had in the past where grading has been done to that property, and it's massive disruption. Just simple grading, removal of dirt that I've called in about in the past. I'm concerned about the construction, long-term impacts. We're part of a moraine. We're actually, our development is actually part of a moraine on the Credit River. The Credit River actually is downhill of Steeles. I can imagine that if there's a large enough of a rainstorm, that you're going to have a dirt runoff into the basin from that area. We've seen it run off of Steeles, going into the Credit River in the past, as recently as last spring, where the road was set down. Part of Credit View and Old Credit View River were shut down as a result of flooding, and there are going to be impacts to natural spaces. I think that should be taken into consideration, as well as possible structural damage to residential homes that are going to be that are pre-existing in the area. I live off of Mattagami Street, which is directly behind this proposed high-density residential. I'm concerned about construction entrance, where they're going to be placed. I'm concerned about the traffic that's going to be ensuing as a result of this. These changes are going to, there are 2 schools in those neighborhoods. There is going to be increased traffic, and how is a simple road, the width of Financial Drive, north north of Steeles to Olivia Marie going to handle that, the amount of traffic that's going to be created as a result of these proposed changes? So there's a lot of considerations. I'm not sure what the setback is going to be. It seems as though the buildings tend to be built on top of each other based on the plan. They look very built to be proposed to be constructed incredibly close to Financial Drive, as opposed to being set back sufficiently with some green space around the proposed buildings. It seems though the buildings are going to be constructed immediately upon the road. That I think it's going to be unsightly to begin with. While I appreciate the requirement to build high density residential, we do need to address the housing crisis and all of this other stuff that we're talking about in the news, but it has to be done in a sustainable way. When the residents of the Copper Ridge development that I would speak to, those are the single dwelling homes that are just immediately east of that proposed development. When we purchased our homes, we purchased the home understanding that it was zoned industrial and office use. We didn't realize that there was going to be residential, high density residential that were going to be built behind us. The consultation process being what it is, completely understand, but there's a lot of potential for a lot of damage done to a lot of homes. Dirt, having to clean my windows 3 or 4 times a day. Some of us can't use our backyards when they're simply grading the property in the back. We can't go into our backyards. There are additional costs that are going to be imposed on us as homeowners who take pride in our homes and pride in the fact that we live in Brampton. Like I said, I've lived in Brampton out of my 47 years. I've been here for 46 of those 47 years.
30 seconds, Sean.
And yes, thank you. So I think that there's a lot of concern here around the potential damage to the homes. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you very much. Our next delegation is Dave Airy. Dave? Not here. Is Dave online?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have a Dave online.
Don't have a Dave online, okay. Fazila Ali? Fazila is online.
We do have a Fazila Ali online. We understood Fazili was attending in person, but Fazili, you can unmute your mic, and you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. My name is Fazila Ali, and I live on Matagami Street. Just like my one of my neighbours who just spoke earlier, Sean, I won't repeat all of the concerns because he did mention a lot of them, noting that we are quite busy tonight, but I have a lot of the similar issues that he has. I'll mention a few a bit different ones and maybe expand on them. I mean, again, when grading was done just a few months ago, my house was shaking. Like, there's going to be a lot of property damage. I can imagine cracks, a lot of issues like that. So I'm very concerned. Again, this neighborhood that we live in is, this neighborhood is single residential homes. It's low density. There's no apartment to be seen in sight in our area. So I'm not understanding why we would build 15 apartment buildings in a single residential area. Lots of families, lots of young children, lots of people out about walking. Doesn't make sense. You normally would build, something similar to what's already there, not something drastically different. Like 15 apartments seems a bit drastic. It doesn't fit into the existing community that we have. It's a lovely community in Brampton. And this would be setting, a precedent to say you can build whatever you want, wherever you want, doesn't matter what's around. You could build residential, high density, next to a single home community. It doesn't make sense. It won't look nice. It's going to reduce the quality of life for the residents there. And I just want to know, how long would this development take to build? Understanding that residential homes, that's quite a small project, a few years maybe. Apartment buildings, I understand, can take up to 10 years to build such a project, especially 15 and all the rest that they're looking to build. How long would this take? 10 years? So 10 years of not being able to use your garden, not being able to use your pool, not being able to sit out. The amount of dust that we had, we couldn't sit in our garden for that whole month. So does that mean 10 years of not using the garden, 10 years of kids not playing out? The dust, the dirt, those kind of things have to be taken into consideration. Again, has a traffic study been done? Because there has been a couple of fatal collisions on Steeles and Financial already. Very busy intersection. The schools in the area are already heavily populated. We have portables in every school. they cannot accommodate the existing families in that area. How will we accommodate 10, 15 more thousand people in the area? Will more schools be built? Like I didn't see a school proposed in this high density project. So where will all those kids go? Which school will they go to? It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of buses on Financial. Where would those bus stops be? Where would the kids catch the school buses? A lot of kids walk to school. You know, those kind of concerns, very, very disturbing. I don't understand how it's been looked at in terms of overcrowding. Have a lot of concerns about overcrowding, especially for school children's safety, a big concern, because I know the kids are very, very struggling in schools, no places for new families coming in. So how will we accommodate all these children coming in? How will they be able to walk to school with all that development going on? The trucks coming in and out of Financial, Olivia Marie, where will the entrance to construction site be? Will they be on Financial and Olivia Marie where all the little kids and all the families are walking, or will they be on Steeles and, you know, Mississauga Road? Probably not. They'll probably be in the residential area. So that's going to be very, very dangerous for the current, you know, residents in that community. So there's a lot to think about. We already have a built up, you know, nice residential area. So you have to kind of blend new buildings in rather than sticking something that doesn't fit in the existing community, understanding that something has to be built there. You know, all the residents agree with that. I agree something has to go on that land, but it has to fit in with the existing community. High density 15 apartments does not fit in with what we already have. And it will definitely ruin that area. So those are some of my concerns. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for your delegation. Our next delegation is Anish Shah. Anish? Welcome.
Thank you. Respected council members and staff of Brampton City, thank you for the opportunity for providing this feedback. My name is Anish Shah. I'm the resident of Brampton for over 15 years. I live in the Copper Ridge area, directly affected, and I want to formally give my opposition for this proposal. And I've got 4 main points of concern. The first being, and probably most of council members would know, a derogatory term is used along with Brampton. Brampton is called a bedroom community. What it means is a lot of residents go outside Brampton for their work or for their business. According to the Brampton Board of Trade, more than 51.5% of Brampton's population go outside Brampton to work. Today is an opportunity for us to address that bad name that we have and get some respect for all Bramptonians. What it does is, apart from getting a bad name, people have to drive longer hours, there's lost productivity, and it also builds a bigger carbon footprint. If you look at the original plan, the plan was to build office buildings. And I would strongly recommend and request we stick to that original plan and make sure that we are no longer called a bedroom community. So that's my first point. The second important point is, if you look at Brampton's housing strategy, which probably I think all of you endorsed it, according to that and according to Statistics Canada and 2016 census, our average Brampton household have got 3.5 person, which is way more than the normal. In Ontario, it's 2.6, and nationally it's 2.4. Why is it that we have more persons per household? The reason being, we are a minority community. 3 generations live together, grandparents, parents, and children. And that's why we have more persons per household. In that same housing plan that we have of Brampton, it says that there's a strong demand for 3 or more bedrooms in Brampton. And there is a strategy to meet those requirements. So if the requirements of the community is 3 or more bedrooms, why are we building small 1 or 2 bedroom condominiums or apartments? It just doesn't fit the need of the community. The other important thing is, again, from that same report, it talks about bigger houses have got more persons living in that household, more income, which would mean more taxes and more revenue for the city. So why do we want to give up more revenue for the city by building smaller townhouses and then lesser income for the city? So that's my second point. This proposal does not meet the needs of the community. The third, and I think two speakers before me talked about population density. Today, there are approximately in the neighborhood, from what we saw, about 1,000 to 1,200 homes. If you take the factor of 4 persons per household, that's about 4,000 to 5,000 people. By building the density of around almost 4,697 units, and if you take the same factor, which is the 2016 census average, we're talking about 20,000 people. That's 5 times the current. So is the builder or is the city really looking at all their simulations based on 5 times? And that does not count the number of people who are going to be in retail and offices. This is just people staying in that after this is built. So that's the other point we'll make, that the density is going to be a real big issue. And it affects schools, recreational facilities which don't exist, and the city infrastructure. The fourth point I want to make is there's mention about a transit. There is no transit hub or a terminal in Mississauga and Steeles right now. And even if you build, the data shows, again, this is from in my email written communication, I also sent links to all this data, that the use of cars and trucks and vans is the primary mode of transport for Brampton Unions. On 77%, in fact, from 2016 to 2021, it increased. And even the public transit reduced from 14% to 10%. So even if we have a transit, it's not going to solve the problem because people still stick to cars. So the congestion is going to be really bad. So please consider. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Dhiren Mehta is next. Next, we have Dhiren Mehta. Dhiren Mehta. Thank you.
Thank you, committee, for giving this opportunity. I am in the neighborhood living in on 4 Oliva Mary Road. My biggest concern, as my all neighbors, they explained to you, that this project is going to last very long, and it is going to impact our day-to-day life. The traffic is going to be a huge issue. Right now also, it is heavily crowded area, and adding 20,000 people on top of that is going to create a huge problem. The original plan, when we came here, when we moved here in Toronto, Brampton, that it was decided that this particular place is going to be utilized for commercial space, not for any residential or anything like that. And we were promised, for any community center, which is not existing in the area. Nobody is looking after our requirement, and suddenly, this thing is popping up, and I don't know, whether all other factors are being considered or not. Most of the other things are same. 16 building, on that particular area. Most of my neighborhood will be having shadowing problem, the morning sun, will be, all of them, they are enjoying right now, and they were not knowing that this is going to happen, and now all of a sudden, all of their properties are going to be in a depressing mode. So I really request to continue the original zoning of the property. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Next, we have Gaurav Yakish. Thank you, Gaurav, and you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. Good evening, councillors. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak. And like rest of my neighbors, I'm also part of the Copper Ridge community, here to definitely strongly oppose the huge development of this high density being proposed in our community. Of course, as one of my neighbors said, 15 densely populated buildings within these, community of single detached houses is just going to stick out. But more importantly, I have my major concern is that I have two small kids, right, 12 and 14. So my elder one is being bused to a school far away, which is like about 30 minutes, right? My younger one starts school in September, right? And there are already portables in every school in Brampton you could see visibly, right? So what is the city doing and what is the plan to introduce schools when you're planning to add 15 to 20,000 people in a high density area? Your plan doesn't talk about adding new schools. Your plan doesn't talk about adding good parks. There is hardly a very small park within the corporate community, right? It doesn't talk about adding good public parks, accessible to the general public. Even in terms of the community centers, if I take, right, doesn't seem to be, the plan doesn't seem to be addressing any need of adding community centers within the vicinity. I actually bus my, kids half an hour away to either Cassie Campbell or other community centers. And even there, good luck, and you have to pray to all the gods, right, to even get into a program, right? It's always a wait list. Trust me, like I wake up, every time I have to enroll, I wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, just to make sure that I'm waiting well in advance and pray to the gods that at least I get into a swimming program or any program I wish my kids to get into, right? So less schools, less community, not enough development opportunities for the kids. Even in the current scenario, when we don't have such of a densely populated population and area. Another important point I would like to make is, I'm sorry to say this, but I see zero policing in Brampton. Everybody knows about auto thefts, all the incidents, violent incidents we have been looking at our home. I mean, I personally have 2 tickets open with the city just to, reduce a speed limit on my street and add a stop sign, and it's been months. Nobody has contacted us. I have an open case open with the Peel Region Police to come and investigate a speeding incident on my street. It's been months. Nobody has. I can actually give you, ticket numbers and reference numbers of these incidents. Nobody has contacted us. It's been months. So, I mean, if this is the standard of the current, things which are happening right now, what's going to happen in future, right? So it seems like, every year we are paying more in taxes, and our services are going down, right? So, I mean, to be honest with you, I've been in Brampton for the last 10 years. I would say the services were much better, 10 years back. It's probably just going worse to, bad to worse with every passing year, to be honest with you, right? Yeah, I mean, so that's what my main plan is. I mean, good luck with all this development, but I mean, what if you're not able to give quality life, to the young people and the service class and the young generation you're wanting to call to Brampton? Everybody's anyways going to get frustrated and leave in the end of it. Right? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gaurav. Next, we have Sandeep Sharma. Thank you, Sandeep.
Hi.
And you have 5 minutes.
My name is Sandeep Sharma. I'm from 24 Hiking Court. Directly in the area, but this is going to be affecting us. My couple concerns are, well, my colleagues or my friends or my neighborhood people, they already spoke about it. My main concern is what kind of studies have we done so far as far as traffic, for safety, all these things? If it is done, could we get access to that, or was it shared? Is it public knowledge? We just concerned. If there's any studies that is going to be done on traffic and all that, could I recommend that you do that starting September, not now? Because you will see day and night difference between now and starting September. So just wanted to give you a personal example. My work is about 7 kilometers from my house. It takes me 40 minutes to get home. Easy. Morning time, easy 15 minutes. A left turn alone in my neighborhood takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Light change in front of us, we are just staring at it. Just imagine this population that's going to come in is going to be about 6, 7, 8 times more than what we, in the small, it looks like 160
acre. Yes, it is, but if you look at it, all the traffic is gonna be rerouted to our street, which is Financial Street. That's the main, and it's a smaller street in a sense like our left turn, and those guys coming from the right-hand side, that's gonna be nightmare. So we have no choice but to move. So I don't know, we paid all the taxes and all that, but ultimate decision is city council's decision. Is that right? So if that's the case, all these younger kids, you're gonna put them to the safety risk. I don't know if, God forbids, any mishap happens. If it does happen, who's responsible for it? Is the city who decided, okay, let the builder build? Look, builder's gonna build, no matter what you. Original plan was commercial and education. We have no community center in that area. We have no gym, we have no sports complex, we have none of that. So our question is, why was it changed? Was it changed because there's mandate from higher ups, upper echelon saying, hey, we need to build more houses? If so, can we not switch with some other development in a sense like you guys, Brampton is having a medical school. Could that be put it over there instead of putting the residential? Because we have no access to go or anything like that. Just imagine 7 kilometers going this way to 40 minutes. What do you expect residents to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning just because they want to get to work at 8 o'clock? So this is going to put a lot of strain on it. So other thing is our well-being and also mental health. All these parents who's going to say, okay, my kid is old enough to walk to the school, is always going to be thinking, is he going to come back home okay? So just imagine that. I don't have any notes prepared, but I was just listening earlier to the planner, Emma, saying it's an MTSA. There's no such thing there. Right now, as we stand, there's not, okay, it's designated to that, but bus comes every 20 minutes to 40 minutes. If you see the lineup, there are places just further down. It's all, how should I say, try crossing at about 3 o'clock. You will see. Anywhere from 3 to 4, you can't even drive through the steels. Now, these buildings you're erecting, 15 buildings you're commending, why are they toward financial, where it's going to be? So if there's going to be any, number one, the story should be a lot lower and less number than 15 or 16 story high, but it should be toward main Mississauga Road. And all the entrance and exit should be toward Mississauga Road. They'll take away the traffic that's coming to financial, right? It'll take away from that because nobody has a right way of going. Everything is going to be accessed from the Mississauga Road, and you have no reason to go to financial. It's a longer route. It will be longer route, congested route. So that's another thing. And the third thing is parks. We have none whatsoever. We have Eldorado. If you want to go see Eldorado Park now as compared to what you've seen 4 or 5 years ago, it's day and night difference. Day and night difference is like you have to go 2 or 3 hours early just to get a little space where you can sit down. Going forward, all these 40,000 people coming in, how do you expect them to do? There's no health, there's no medication. Look at the hospital we have. Only in Brampton here, 30 seconds. We have nothing. When we go to Mississauga Hospital, they said, where are you from, Brampton? Go back there. This is what we get. There should be some medical facility around here. This is a lot of people coming in this area, so you have to consider that, please. I would strongly suggest you go back to the original one and see what you can do. Maybe you can put a building or two additional to that with the original plan going to commercial, have 1 or 2 residential, yes, on the far end on the Mississauga Road, so it's not affecting our lifestyle. Thank you very much. I think my time is up.
Time's up. Thank you very much. Just letting everybody know that you can always contact the planner and ask any questions or get any studies that you're looking for. We'll be happy to provide them to you. Our next delegation is Amarpal Gill. Amarpal? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Most of my neighbors have already spoken about the same issues that I had. First two delegates, I do live on the same street. Sean is actually my neighbor. Our concern mostly is with the apartment buildings. We are within 240 meters of the site, and it seems like the planning is going to be for the buildings to be right behind our houses. My bedroom window actually faces where it's going to be. This was 2023-0014, I believe, right off of Financial there. I'm an avid gardener, and I'm also concerned about, the amount of shade that's going to be thrown our way because of the buildings and stuff. But I also have two young children, a 12-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And my mother-in-law, who takes them for a walk, does walk along Financial as well. There's an ongoing problem with speeding, loud exhaust cars, just blowing down. It's a 50-kilometer-an-hour zone. It's a community safety zone. There's a school right down the street from us. Nobody seems to care. They had a camera, one of those speed cameras. People stop just before it. Once they pass it and they're out of the camera capture zone, they go on and accelerate again. So safety is a huge concern for us. We've noticed in the most recently, we have also had an uptick in crimes. A lot of our neighbors have decided to put cameras up. So with the influx of more and more residents, especially if it's going to be one-bedroom, two-bedroom apartments, we all know housing in Brampton is pretty expensive. So it's one of those things where, I'm not going to say it's going to be people that are moving in, they're going to make the crime rate go up. But when you're adding that much population to our area already, there is a big chance of that, and that's a huge concern for us. I do live with my in-laws. My father, Major Singh, over there, retired a few years ago after surviving cancer. Loves to sit outside, especially during the summer months. And as Sean spoke about the grading that happened a couple of months ago, it was very difficult for him to sit outside and he sits in the garage because it's a lot cooler for him there. And the concern is the style, the lifestyle, or the quality of life, I should say, that would be changing for the immediate residents. There are a lot of kids that go for walks with their grandparents, with their parents, along Financial. There's adequate enough sidewalk space for bikes and people to walk, but the problem is also with speeding. And what we're concerned about is the amount of traffic that's going to happen. My neighbor also speaking about 40 minutes to go 7 kilometers. I work down by Woodbine Racetrack, and it takes me 15 minutes to 20 minutes to go from Mississauga Road in Steeles, not even out of my house, to 401, just to get onto 401. And to go down 401, it's 10 minutes to go, 20 kilometers rather than 6.5 kilometers. That's a major concern for us, is also the amount of traffic that's going to be in our area. As of right now, we believe Financial Drive itself, as being 2 lanes each way, isn't adequate enough to basically hold all those cars. And, as my other neighbors have also mentioned, Brampton is unfortunately, as much as you guys are trying to make it into a public transit and getting people to jump on it, more and more people are going to drive because, unfortunately, we do have to get jobs outside of the city. There aren't that many opportunities within the city. Also with the quality of life issue, my kid plays soccer, and just to get to Credit View and Sandalwood Park, it takes me about a half hour. Reason being, Mississauga Road goes from 3 lanes, coming towards Queen Street, goes to 2, then it breaks out into 3 again, and it just creates a huge funnel and backlog of traffic, and that's right by our house as well. We've also seen people, they cut through Financial just to cut through traffic and everything like that, which is also a concern. It probably does add to the speeding. Everybody does want to get home at a decent amount of time. I've been living in Brampton since 1989. My parents still live at our original house, which is by 22 Division. And it used to take us, when we moved, it used to take us only 10 minutes to go down Steeles, down here Ontario Street, and just 10-minute drive. Now, to go see my parents, it's about a half hour. And that's on the weekend. It's just one of those things where the amount of traffic that's coming, and just the planning, even with Steeles, it goes from 3 lanes to 2 over the Credit River, and then it goes again to 3, and then it breaks back down into 2. So our concerns with safety, as well as, you know, the effect it's going to have on our houses and our buildings, is deeply concerning to us, and we hope that these are addressed, especially safety. And I mean, like, all our neighbors, we spent a lot of money on our houses just to make it comfortable for us. And with our backyard the way it is, you know, it's for a good 2-3 weeks we couldn't even sit in the backyard. The amount of dust that was there and everything.
Thank you, Aaron.
And those are our concerns.
Thank you very much. Amarpal's dad, Major Singh. Welcome, Major.
Thank you very much. And really the opportunity to raise my concern in this development. My son already mentioned that's a good thing. But the main thing we have, what's going to happen when the construction starts? That many houses are busy, and with the construction and Division Road, what happens to the property? If there's a damage, who's going to pay for that? And you can't even sit in the back, all the dust is coming there. And we have a tree in the back, and the fall, and the spring, lots of stuff coming in the backyard. But we have to have the tree. Nothing we can do is clean it. But when you have the construction that big, preserved for so long, how do you enjoy our life? Especially lots of neighbors mentioned about the traffic. Traffic is going to be so much, we don't know what to do. Let's do road. How much time do you have to spend on the road? I'm sad that from 2.5 hours. I spent lots of money on my house, upgraded, put the stone there, and to enjoy my life. But now, when the projects come, how do you enjoy your life? I was busy, cannot go anywhere. We have the schools on the financial side, and they have already both rivers there. There's no school in this area, no community center in this area. All the people retired, we don't have any community center. Maybe we can go, sacrifice everything. How we can improve our life here? But there's nothing. We have to develop that land, no doubt about it. We cannot just sit there. But consider that many houses building, the amount of people going in this area is going to be nightmare. I would say, please consider that person's son and think about it, especially about the houses building, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. Major's concerns a lot around the traffic and the construction debris and safety. Jasmeet Singh is our next. She couldn't make it. Okay, thank you. Harshal Bhatt. Harshal? Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Harshal Bhatt. I live on 35 Messina Avenue, which is the closest to financial and steels. Like, my house actually faces the vacant land that is being constructed with 15 high-rise buildings in that area. And I'm here to oppose that, as my other neighbors do. So rather than saying the concerns, I'll give you some scenarios. One fine morning, I woke up. It had 4 feet of snow. I work downtown, so I take GO Transit, which again, from the Meadowvale GO station, which is in Mississauga. I said, my car is not working. Why? My battery decided to die out. I said, all right, let's take it easy. Let's see what are my other options. There is no transit that goes to any GO station in the neighborhood. I had to take either Mississauga Road, and due to COVID, the transit on Mississauga Road was not working. So I had to take the Steels 11 that goes to Bramley GO, and it comes every 15 to 20 minutes on a busy workday morning. Once I It took me half an hour to get the bus. Once I got the bus to go to the Bramley-Co, of course, I never got a seat, which, these are big buses. I'm not talking about small. I never got a seat. The population density is high in that area. It took me more than 45 to 50 minutes to reach to Bramley-Co, where the GO train is limited with the number of compartments that it has. And of course, I didn't get a seat there. It took me around 3 hours of commute, purely using transit from my place to downtown Union Station. I wanted to bring this to the attention is by adding 5,000 units, 4,000 units, adding more 10 to 15,000 members of living members in that area, the transit will take, as a public transit is not adequate to take that load. Second option, I have a 4-year-old. We go to the Eldorado Park, and I think one of my colleagues do mention it. He loves to slide, as all of our kids do. And it takes him at least, he has to wait in line for 10 to 15 other kids to get the slide done before we can go again. And this is on a typical, like a regular summer weekend. Since there are no other parks, that's the only option. Adding another 10,000, 15,000 residents will make it even worse, like 3 times the wait. Would we want our kids to be in that place on a weekend where they have to wait just to enjoy? Third point I want to make is crime. And we all know, not only in Brampton, everywhere in Canada, the crime rates are going through the roof. Theft, murders, everything. Like, and it's a common conception that once there is more density, there needs to be more police presence, and safety concerns of the residents in Brampton has to be there. I think the infrastructure need to be made in order to accommodate the new building or the plan that are already being proposed for all these concerns that are being made. Like, if we want to make 10 to 50,000 people come into Brampton in that neighborhood, do we have enough jobs? I don't think so. There are no industrial complexes around the area which can provide more job opportunities for these people. Do we want to make this another Square One? Yes, Square One has a big mall, a big transit system, and a big employment center that can sustain that amount of people. In this area, we do not have that. So I would like the council and the planners to reconsider the plan, think about other facilities that are actually required right now, and then add on to the new residences that we are being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. Conrad Fernandez. Thank you, Conrad. Thank you. And like I said before, at any time you want to send the planners emails, you're already registered. You'll already get the information as it goes out. So, but anytime you want to send an email to the planner, they're happy to receive that as well. Our next delegation is Kanwar Deep Singh Bhatia. Kanwar's online.
Hello, hello, council. Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and thank you to, I guess, like all the residents prior to me who speak their opinion. So it's great to see that there's a lot of passion about this neighborhood and this community. So thank you for that. That's great to see. I guess like my sentiments are similar. But I wonder if there's any sort of maybe not exactly a middle ground, but any sort of middle ground that can be created in this area. I really like the idea of having that central park. I do appreciate that, having residential units in the area does make sense given how much of a population change we should be expecting, or that has been created in the past couple of years. So don't want to be insensitive to that fact. So I really appreciate that. So I guess like what I'm wondering, and I think a few had sort of stated this, is maybe there's a way where you can support both, and having an area where there are parks having space for, a couple of buildings. But I think when most residents saw the idea of 15 buildings and about 4,000 plus potential additional residents in this area, I think that was a bit of a shock. So I don't want to restate many of the things that have been said. I'm grateful to see that there is development happening in this area. I used to live on Olivia Marie, facing that site or that big area. We moved recently, but since then I've always wondered, hey, what's going to come to this area? So it's nice to see that there is actual development in the works or in the future. But maybe finding a way where it could support a little more of a community-based area, and less of a something like 4,000 residents. So those are the main things. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Like I said, very excited to see where this goes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenmore. Sylvia?
Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. Last time I was on the Transit Advisory Committee, I visited a lot of the areas of the city on transit. I did notice that this area had very poor transit access, and I recognize that the developer is saying, well, it's along a transit corridor. It's an MTSA, which is true. It's also along the Steeles BRT, which is planned, which is true. However, this is still relatively early in the technical studies. I believe this year we're supposed to get the preliminary thing to convince Metrolinx to work on the draft plans to continue it further. So we're looking at least 5 years until anything breaks ground. It's a big development. The developer's asking for a change in the parking requirements to only require 0.55 parking spaces per unit. Now, generally, I'm pretty supportive of reducing the amount of parking. My concern is there is not adequate transit here. I've looked at the DC bylaws for transit. This will generate approximately $18 million in transit. So for what does that mean for residents? That's enough to buy 12 articulated buses. So that should make it so we can, with the additional buses, that should be able to make it so the bus runs every 5 minutes, which much better than 30 minutes, as I think Harshal was the one who described how rough it was trying to get on the bus, shop with capacity. But the transit bylaws for development charges were not designed for assuming that over 40% of the residents in a development are going to take transit in an area that does not have existing transit. If this were in, say, Uptown or along the Queen Street corridor, this would be much easier to manage because there's already a lot of transit and we can provide transit more efficiently. But here, because of the amount, the transit DCs do not cover it. So because they're asking for a variance to reduce the amount of parking required by over 2,000 units total, and the minimum, I think the building cost for parking right now is $50,000 plus, the city might want to look at Section 40 of the Planning Act, which allows you to reduce your parking requirements in exchange for a fee, and say, look, the amount of parking spaces, you're reducing it for $10,000, we'll do a trade. Give us $10,000 per spot you're not building, which is a savings of 80%, and we will use this specifically to build transit for this area. This can help fund the studies because there's still a bunch more studies the city has to fund. There's still a bunch more buses the city is going to need to buy. There's going to be a huge amount of infrastructure that the city is going to need to build to service this development. And so the city could quite reasonably ask them for $20 million for this, and that would help cover the cost, and that would make it so the buses would come very frequently. We'd be able to build the BRT corridor, and if the developers like $20 million is a lot of money, you can modify the phasing because there are so many different phases, so that instead of building it all underground as currently proposed, some of it is surface parking to serve in the meantime as the transit is getting built, and then those can specifically come to the city with a plan to redevelop the site in the future once the hard services are there, because we do have holding bylaws for if there's not enough services. So gate check that, And then once the services are there, then they can remove the parking lot and put in the new buildings. It would make it so that they'd be able to come up with the money, and the city would be able to come up with all of the hard services to ensure that we do not have a huge issue, because you've got a whole bunch of people, we've got more than 2,000 people who are going to be moving to the development without cars, and the transit can't service it. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you, Silvio. Our next delegation is Mariana Nevis.
Mariana is online. Mariana, you can unmute your mic and you have up to 5 minutes. Mariana, you are in the session. You can unmute your microphone and you can address the committee. There you go. Mariana?
Hi, sorry about that. Yes, that's me.
Yes, please go ahead.
I just want to say how proud I am of my neighborhood and all my neighbors, and for everybody coming forward and letting their voices being heard. However, I am quite disappointed at the timing of this meeting, because many of my neighbors are away on holiday, have taken their kids to soccer, to basketball, to baseball, and I feel that there isn't enough representation and enough voices being heard about the significant impact that's going to occur between where we all plan to live, which is a quiet suburban neighborhood, which is now planned to become a huge transit hub, which will increase the number of crime, accidents, transportation issues, school issues, community issues. We won't be able to use our parks the way we should be. We won't be able to take walks down our neighborhoods and feel safe, because there's going to be so many more people in our neighborhoods. We're not going to be able to take our kids swimming because there'll be capacity at all the community centers in this area. And I'm just deeply concerned about what's going to happen to my children in the future and their future for the next 10 years. This is going to impact the way that we live and the quality of life for many of us. And I really want to make it available to all of my neighbors to be heard, the ones that are away and the ones that are busy, to be able to voice their concern. And I want to find a way that we can create a petition to have this zoning reconsidered so that it doesn't impact the current residents in such a negative way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. And just so you know, Mariana, if you can let your neighbors know that they can always email the planner and ask any questions that they want, and all of those emails are taken into public record. Thank you very much for your delegation. Our next delegation is Kulveer Singh Gill. Kulveer, come down, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, esteemed councilors of the Planning Development Committee and fellow citizens. My name is Kulveer Singh Gill, and I live in a multi-generational home on Howland Crescent. So I'm addressing both developments, but particularly the one south, but they're part and parcel, I guess, at this point. My house backs on Financial. I have to say, I've been in this neighborhood for 15 years, and I've seen more community mobilization in the last 3 weeks than I've seen in the entire 15 years. Because of the timing of the event, short notice for many people who live beyond the 240-meter mark, like myself, this just wasn't a time to get here today. But I can assure you that the dog walkers in the park have been talking about this a lot more than anything else in the last many times. So thank you for the opportunity to address the matters of what I say responsible housing and economic development in our beloved city of Brampton. I'm here as a concerned citizen who really values progress and growth, but also recognizes the need for balanced and, I'll say, thoughtful, intentional development. You know, I express my support for responsible housing and economic development in our city. As we continue to grow, it's essential that we have adequate housing options for all of our residents, and we create opportunities for economic prosperity. But I believe that responsible development, responsible development can lead to a thriving community for all of us. However, I'm deeply concerned about the proposed projects in the current form, particularly just I'll say the creation of a new mini city at the corner of Steeles and Financial. What I see coming on overnight, when I look at the plans here, I acknowledge the need for growth, and I believe, we gotta strike a balance between progress and preserving the character of our existing neighborhoods. Before you say this is all rooted in knee-jerk NIMBYism, which usually happens, and I roll my eyes sometimes at that too, but I think the adverse impacts of this major development that have in our community should give us pause for thought. You know, the massive increase in vehicular traffic, the strain on local schools, the potential safety issues, these are worries that we shouldn't be taking lightly and not moving quickly on. So I implore the committee to have a more responsible approach to development, addresses these concerns, and just a few specific suggestions to encourage more responsible development. Community engagement. I think these formal meetings are a start, but I think the developers, officials, and residents really need to have a much more thoughtful process when it comes to addressing the citizens. We should be doing things with the citizens, not to the citizens, and it certainly feels like that's what's happening today. Much greater focus on infrastructure planning. We have such a deficit right now in our community. Community centers, schools, we have a makeshift library we're working out of. There's no high school in sight. Transportation issues are there. And I think without answers to those of how they're going to be addressed in parallel, this massive development, I don't want this 2023 to be called the good old days. Remember how things were in 2023 before everything happened? Because I'm getting that sense of dread right now in our community. I really want to encourage the use of mixed-use development. Integrate commercial, residential, recreational spaces here. That's what's going to create vibrant, self-sustaining, and dare I say, 15-minute communities, right? I am concerned, like others, about the height and density adjustments here. When I look at just the towering Toronto-esque condos nature here, you know, I'll be able to see these. You'll be able to see them from miles away, and I encourage the looking at medium density. You're making such a massive change to the zoning. Understand the need for more housing, but this density is much more for a downtown environment, not something that's out in the burbs. The parks are already full, as everybody says. Heaven forbid kids have to stay in line even longer to use the zip lines and the slides. But I'm feeling that we have the least walkable city in the GTA, and I think adding this kind of traffic is going to make it even more. And traffic management, I see that Steeles is going to be tripled at some point. Are you going to quadruple it? Are you quintuple it? Financial is already 2 lanes. Unless you start taking out houses, you're not going to get to 3 lanes. So I think some of these suggestions, take into account to have a more balanced and responsible approach to development. Benefits all of our stakeholders, including the developers, including the community, including the city. I think we need more collaboration, more thoughtful planning. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit on this. This seems like such a massive change. We're not just going from, adding a tower. We're talking, add up everything else the planning committee is dealing with today, and this one development is an order of magnitude more severe. So I think we need to slow down a little bit and strike the balance, and I urge this committee to really consider the long-term implications of these developments. And we need a more responsible and sustainable approach. I think we do this right. We can embrace progress, but it can't be at the expense of the well-being and the quality of life for all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Kovir. I'll switch over to the delegation applications to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, KLM Planning Partners on behalf of Metro Central Properties, 1735 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 6. And again, I'll put Keith McKinnon and Darren Steeman, who are both here listening, if they'd like to respond after, they can do so. Karen Johal. Karen?
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Johal, and I live on Nova Scotia Road in Ward 6. I'm here today with the support of close to 1,000 residents who have signed a physical and online petition opposing the application to amend plans and the zoning bylaw at 1735 Steeles Avenue West. We have just started this petition, and our numbers will continue to grow over the next couple of weeks. We oppose this proposal for several reasons, which include, but are not limited to, the following. Number one, this is an unreasonable number and height of high-density apartments on such a small L-shaped parcel of land. Number two, this will increase traffic congestion at the intersection of Steeles Avenue and Financial Drive and along the Financial Drive corridor once the development is completed. I have lived in this neighborhood for over 19 years, and since then, traffic congestion has increased dramatically due to the increase in commercial and industrial development in the area. so much so that I have a hard time just getting into and out of Financial Drive. Number 3, there will be an overflow of parking from the proposed high-density development onto our neighboring residential streets. Number 4, the new proposal does not maintain the value and integrity of owner-owned and occupied homes. It does not adhere to the characteristics of the well-established and well-to-do neighborhood. Number 5, this will have a negative impact on our elementary school and high school. 20 years ago, the elementary students in our neighborhood would bus to Huttonville Public School. It took 10 years for a school to be built in our neighborhood. With currently 870 students at El Dorado Public School, it already has 9 portable classrooms with no land to allow further expansion. Meanwhile, Jean Augustine Secondary School opened only 7 years ago and has 1,400 students, is located 7.5 kilometers away, and serves several subdivisions. Introducing such high population density will only further exacerbate the lack of capacity. Our current and future students deserve better. Number 6, there is a potential for an increase in crime. A study by Thomas McNulty and Stephen Holloway at the University of Georgia has shown more criminal activity with apartments and other high-density housing types versus owner-occupied dwellings. Another study by 2 professors, Thomas Stuckey, a criminologist and former law enforcement officer, and John Ottensman, an expert in urban land use, both at the School of Public and Environmental Affairs at the University of Indiana, also found a link between criminal activity and high-density land use. All these outcomes will distress our neighborhood. This colossal proposal shows that the developer has no interest in the well-being of the surrounding community. As an individual with a master's in public health, I understand the value of healthy communities, and I can attest to the fact that poor policies and developments always result in negative, irreversible consequences that only affect residents of the community, not councillors, not the mayor, not the developer, and not the provincial government. We strongly urge everyone involved to decline this proposal and immediately start conversations with the involvement of all stakeholders, which includes residents, to find solutions on how best this land can be developed with minimal negative impacts. We encourage a well-balanced development of commercial and retail spaces and residential townhomes that will maintain the characteristics of the neighborhood that Streetsville Glen residents are proud to call home. I assure you, any approval of this application as it stands today will result in thousands of angry residents and an overwhelming lack of support and confidence in our elected officials. In closing, I ask only one question. What is the point of municipal elections if those elected officials do not consider the well-being and wishes of the people they represent? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Our next delegation is Joanne Hillian. Joanne?
Joanne is online. Joanne, you can please proceed.
Yep. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Joanne Hillian. I live on Edmonton Street, which is just down the road from the location for which this application pertains. I've lived here for 22 years. Probably one of the very first persons in the neighborhood. So since the very beginning of the Streetsville Glen neighborhood, I've seen it develop over those 22 years and really enjoyed the neighborhood. It's a lovely, what I call, pocket of single-family homes where residents have taken great pride of ownership. Our neighbors have created this spirit, and they've had their homes for some time. They've looked after them and have invested in them. The basis of my objection and request to have the residential areas that abut Financial Drive remain low density. So I think the key here is, the key request is that anything that's abutting Financial Drive to remain as low density is really my big ask, both north and south, because both of those, all of the areas abutting Financial Drive are all, as many have pointed out, low density residential single family households. So a couple of points I would like to make. Number one, it is documented that high density rental housing will impact surrounding neighborhoods. This location is surrounded by existing low density single family households. there will be more people, more cars, and less pride of home ownership, as many of my fellow residents have pointed out. Number two, many people have chosen to invest in home ownership in this area, this low density residential area that abut Financial Drive. They've chosen this pocket and have invested their savings and lives into this area. Let's keep this low density residential area intact. There are a few areas like this in Brampton. Let's preserve them where we can. Neighborhoods are fragile and need to be nourished. Neighborhoods either get stronger or they get weaker and decay. Number three, it's not a small amendment. This is a big deal, as many have pointed out. Adding 19 residential apartment buildings is a material impact in the area. It's 4,600 new residential high-rise, high-density units in this direct area, most of which would likely be rental ownership. We would like to request that such a large infusion of rental property and housing units be located closer to other similar high-density zoned areas and not smack dab in the middle of a location that is surrounded by several low-density residential neighborhoods. I believe that an influx of high-density apartments will increase transients and turnover of residents in the neighborhood. Neighbors will then know, a lesser percentage of people in the neighborhood. Long-term homeowners are more protective of their neighborhoods, thereby reducing crime. And the homes around them, people that live in their homes, long-term homeowners are known to be more protective than short-term tenants. Number five, adding 4,600 new housing units in this area, as pointed out, will lead to increased parking and traffic in our surrounding neighborhoods. Our neighborhood streets are already trending towards more cars and faster cars, and more parking on the streets as larger families have moved into our area. So increasing this number of units in the area will lead to more cars clogging the streets with parked cars on the curb. Number six, and lastly, homeowners prefer to live next to single-family homes rather than next to apartments. So adding zoning density to our existing neighborhood, our existing single-family neighborhood, makes them less attractive to both homeowners and renters in the neighborhood, quite frankly. So less attractive neighborhoods attract less desirable residents, and this will only create a downward neighborhood spiral to the surrounding and existing neighborhoods that abut Financial Drive. In summary and in closing, we believe that adding density to the area south, west, and northwest off of Financial Drive will destabilize, diminish, and ultimately destroy our neighborhood. Adding density disrupts neighborhoods. Neighborhoods are fragile and need to be nourished. Please keep our neighborhoods that abut Financial Drive low density home ownership and do not allow this amendment that will flood the area with high density apartments. Adding density to neighborhoods makes planners feel good, but makes homeowners feel bad. And many of us are feeling very bad about this amendment. I would also echo what one of my fellow neighbors had pointed out, that even though I live down the street from this area, I only found out about it through speaking to one of my fellow dog walkers. And I think many of my neighbors, even today, that will be impacted by this, don't know about it. So you've got a good representation of how people are feeling about it. I think it's only going to grow stronger and will be echoed by many.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you to everybody who's spoken and the opportunity to be heard tonight.
Thank you, Joanne. Our next delegation is Gagandeep Malhotra. Gagandeep? And we're bringing up your presentation.
So, good evening, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to speak here. I cannot see what's there on the screen, but it's okay. I think a lot of my neighbors have already...
We're dealing with it. Go ahead, Gagandeep.
I think a lot of my neighbors have already talked about traffic and other issues. I'm not going to touch base on them because everybody spoke enough about it. I want to share something else with you guys. So I live on Coastline Drive. I'm an original resident here for a very long time. The closest hospital to us is not in Brampton, it's in Mississauga. This year my son turned 16 and he wanted to take the bus to school, and he went the first day, and 511 or 11A, there's absolutely 0 seats available because there's Amazon facility down the street on Steeles. Given the amount of people who work there in different shifts, there's absolutely no way that he could technically go in there and feel safe and go to his school. This is with the current setup. Forget about adding another 15,000 people in the neighborhood. We are way behind in that. I also add a slide that talks about community centers. If I Google community centers near me, there's 3 in Mississauga, which are 5 kilometers away. There's 1 in Brampton, which is 11.9 kilometers away. So I think even if the city plans to put 1 community center down here, it is late. It's 10 years late. We need 3, not 1. The other thing I want to touch base on is 2 months ago, my dad fell ill. He fell down. He was unconscious for 2.5 hours. He was not unconscious for 2.5 hours, but he was on the floor for 2.5 hours. Now you may ask me, why did I not do anything? I called 911. I was on hold for 12 minutes. When they picked up the phone, they triaged my dad. He's a cancer survivor with a bunch of complications. And they said, we're going to send an ambulance right away. I waited another 40 minutes. Nobody showed up. And they told me to leave my dad on the floor because the way he fell down, he took a big injury to his face and head. He might have a concussion. I called back 911, and they said, you're 3rd in line to get an ambulance. After 2.5 hours, the ambulance came. They triaged my dad, and we followed up at the hospital the next morning. He had multiple fractures in his face. He had to go through 2 surgeries to basically remove those bones that were hitting his muscles. Basically, why I'm sharing this personal story, because this luckily was a minor incident for us. Even though he was heavily bruised, he had to go through he had to undergo 2 surgeries. But God forbid, if it was another resident with a heart attack, 12 minutes for a 911 call to answer, forget about triaging, 2.5 for ambulance, it's a dead citizen. It's a dead citizen that was not supposed to be like that. We came to this country for a better life, but I'm sorry to say this is not what I expected. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. Our next delegation, Sylvia Roberts. Okay, thank you, Sylvia. So now what I'll do, those are the delegations. Going back to the first ones. 6-3? Yes. So I'd like to open it up on behalf of anybody that'd like to come down to delegate on the first 6-3 delegation application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw KLM Planning Partners on behalf of Metro Central Properties. This is your opportunity. If anybody else would like to come down, you can write your name in the book that's there, name and address, and you can come down and delegate. Is there anybody else that would like to come down and delegate? So just behind you. Is there anybody else that'd like to come down and delegate on this item? You can come down and write your name in the book. Okay, come on forward.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because all my neighbors, I came from south of Stills, we echo exactly the same
Sorry, can you hold on one second? If you're leaving, please leave quietly. There are people still delegating on the items. Thank you.
We
Please
echo
continue.
exactly the same concern as the residents living north of the Steels, because when I moved into this neighborhood about two years ago, me and my wife, we plan to retire here because we like our neighborhood. So vast majority of my concerns have already been echoed. They delegated very well. I have nothing more to say. They're all based on facts. Okay, so some sentimental. One thing I just want to, it may not be a very appropriate analogy. First of all, when you do study, you can't just sit behind a computer. Have you lived in the neighborhood? Have you come to the neighborhood 7 days a week to know different times of the day, what kind of people live there? We live there. We know the transit, the public infrastructure is not there to support influx of 15 to 20,000 people. That's a fact. And number two, as I mentioned, it's inevitable. I'm not saying that people going to move into this neighborhood will have a higher rate of crime, but we're peoples. It's proportionally, you're going to raise a problem for that. Three, environmental impact that can be ignored. So I was looking at, building a park along with the development. Come on, south of the Steels, it's already integrated into the I think that's a Credit Valley Conservation. It's a very well integrated. You're gonna build a develop and build a small park. Come on, that's like this neighborhood. I moved away from Mount Pleasant neighborhood. It was okay until you know what happened in the neighborhood. So it's not an ideal place to live. So I moved here, and we have no issue. We want to address the issues with accommodation and everything responsibly. But at the end of the day. We're the people who vote for all the councillors. We love Brampton. It's our hometown. It's our city. We want to preserve our way of life. That's very important. Using an analogy not completely appropriate to wrap up my delegation. Our Prime Minister welcomed open heart to the whole world, bringing the refugees to our country. But the intention was good. Look at the end result. They are not happy. We as taxpayers are not happy. Good intention, your result. That's all I have to say. So I am asking councillors to take a closer look and look at from your point of view, from the bottom of your heart, what's the right decision. We encourage new residential housing and everything because we need it. But thrown 15 plus 4, 19 buildings, 15, 20,000 people into this, what I consider a premium neighborhood, destroy our way of life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record. Hold on. Just have to state your name for the record.
I apologize. My name is Wei Chan, and I live on 108 coastline. I'm border about 240 meters from the south of the.
Thank you, Wei.
Thank you so much.
Next delegation. Penny? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Penny Durga, and I live in Ward 6 on Coastline Drive. I will not labor the points that have already been made, although I fully agree with them. I'd like to elicit a few additional points. So I obviously oppose the proposed housing development in the neighborhood. The first point I'd like to make is the construction of the project would result in a significant environmental damage, destroying the natural habitats and putting the natural ecosystem in the area at risk. There's times when we walk around, we'll see coyotes, we'll even occasionally see deer. We're not going to see that once this housing development comes up. Furthermore, the type of the housing being proposed is simply not in keeping with the character of our neighborhood. This development would, as previously stated, bring in thousands of residents in a relatively small area, which will lead to negative social effects. It will drastically alter the aesthetic of our area, replacing the existing greenery and open spaces with a monolithic, high-density housing complex. The proposed developments could also result in a significant decline in property values. We've all paid premium dollar for acquiring these properties, so where does that leave us financially? Making it very difficult for current residents to sell their homes and move elsewhere. There's a lot of area that's further from Steeles Avenue, on Steeles Avenue, that is better suited to develop a high-density community such as this. So that should probably also be considered. Further, we need some other amenities that are going to better address the needs of the current community that's living in the area, such as a medical center, which has medical labs, a community center. So I'd like to see if that was considered in coming up with this plan, alternate plan for the zoning amendment. The proposed development, I understand, is a more profitable option for the developer, but it certainly undermines the interests and well-being of the community. I actually live right opposite to where the housing will come up, so I'll actually be seeing these buildings, and it will completely block out the sun for me. It affects and alters my well-being and my quality of life, and I understand that it will for the other residents who are in a similar situation. So we can't possibly think of development while we're undermining the interests and well-being of the people that are already living in the neighborhood. So as our councillors and as our representatives, I really request and urge you guys to stand with us and represent our interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Next delegation. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Natasha Mercy. I live on 28 Coastline Drive. I'm facing where the new development will be. I'm not going to kind of add on to what my fellow residents have said, because I agree with them wholeheartedly, especially around traffic and how unsafe it is, quite honestly, especially on Steeles there. But what I will do is, rather than just kind of making several points, I just want to ask a few questions. I know is it Keith McKinnon, the planner?
The planners
are in the house.
Yep.
So it'd be nice if they can maybe speak to a couple of these questions, and also some for the city as well. But I just have, I think, 5 max. Where we live, we've got a No Frills off to the east, and then we have a Freshco off to the west. Right now, it seems as if those 2 grocery stores are really at capacity, especially the Challow. So my question is, and it's best if you get in during off hours, but if you get in right after work, it's a little crazy, given the current amount of residents that are there. So my question is, will you invest in building more grocery stores? That's just my first question. Also, are there any plans to expand Financial or Steeles? And if so, I suspect probably there is, but what are the kind of plans for that? Because again, Financial is just too, it's pretty tight, let's just say that. And Financial from Steeles heading into Mississauga, like it's a street that's often used for people to get into Mississauga and also to get to the 401 and 407 and also the 403. So are there plans to expand Financial as well as Steeles? Just a question of curiosity too. Can the city council also explain why they've approved so many high-density buildings? Like, I'm definitely for affordable housing. I know urban sprawl is a thing, it happens. Brampton has a lot of green space in a sense, and so I recognize that that's a thing, but it's 19 high-rises. That's a lot. Why so many? Between on both sides, the 4 and the 15. And also my last question then is, so I grew up in an apartment building. They were called garden homes back in the day. We had lots of space, good amenities on site. But I just wonder, would the residents even themselves feel as if there's enough space for them? And also, will it be affordable for them? I know we have a lot of newcomers coming to Brampton and also within kind of like the Brampton, Mississauga area, but will it be affordable? And then my last question, I promise. I could be reading the map wrong. I got it in the mail and it was kind of hard for me to kind of figure out where everything was going to be, but there's some green space kind of further west, just before, I think where the, is it the Husky? What's the name of that? Is it Husky? Yeah, the gas station there, there's space on that east side of that. Is that also being developed or no? So that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Okay, so let me try and answer two of those for sure. Why are we approving so many apartments? We're not approving anything.
Okay.
It is every landowner's right to bring forward an application to the city of Brampton. If you owned land, you wanted to bring forward something, it is your right to do so. So what we'll do and what staff will do is we'll look at all the studies and then they'll start putting all of the information together and write a report. And that's when the report will go out to everybody that's here, goes out to all of us, and that's when we will make the decision. The green space, I'd like to try and tackle that, but if it's beside the Husky, that's not, there's a lot of space in between the Husky and the development on the south side of Steeles. So those are other people that own that property.
So there's no develop, so you can't touch it is what you're saying?
If that landowner wants to do something,
Yeah.
it is their right
Got
to
it.
come forward and put something forward. And I've seen some things dabble once in a while. Somebody tried to do a strip plaza, I think, or plus there was some talk about hotels there, but that's something else. As for your other questions, those questions will be captured in the staff report and be provided at that time. Okay, Steeles is a regional road, so we'd have to have a discussion with the Region Appeal to see what their plans are for Steeles. It's kind of always changing sometimes. But thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
Our next delegation. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Nair Nazir. Thank you for letting me speak. I didn't prepare a proper speech, so I just wanted to go over, I did go on the website and I reviewed some of the documents that the developers had posted, and I have some concerns about some of them. First of all, before I talk about the documents themselves, one of my concerns is this is a major issue that's coming across not only in Brampton, but all over Ontario. And I know that there is high density, obviously, by Shoppers World, but also, from my understanding, across from Sheridan Campus, McLaughlin Road and Steeles will also be a high density area as well, with very tall buildings, apartment buildings, and now our area. And as well in Mississauga, Argentia, and Winston Churchill, they are demolishing the commercial areas and putting high density residential there as well. So one of my concerns is, where do I shop? Everything is residential. Are we a residential town? Do we have no commercial? As somebody else mentioned, we only have one grocery store. If I need to shop, Argentia and Winston Churchill, the Meadowvale shopping center, will be gone. So where will I be shopping? I'll be shopping in Heartland, which means I'll be driving down Financial Road. I live on Coastline Drive, so I live in Wards 4. So there's going to be a lot of traffic on Financial Drive. And I read the traffic brief completed by Burnside and Associates Limited. It's dated May 29th of this year. And I have some concerns about it. First of all, it said in the study, and I hope the city will be completing their own traffic study, because right now we also have MDA, the large aerospace company, I don't know their name exactly, but they're constructing a large building on Financial Drive, right by the 407. There's 700 employees that are going to work there. They're going to be driving down Financial Drive. Okay, they're going to be driving to Mississauga and they're going to be driving to Brampton. So Financial Drive right now is only 4 lanes. I don't feel that infrastructure is there to support the additional, let's say, 20 to 30,000 people that are going to move into this area. The traffic brief that was completed by Burnside and Associates does not address this. Basically, the builder, I'll just quote some things. Based on existing traffic volumes, it appears that the existing traffic is being well served within the capacity of the current road network, and there are no areas of concern. However, existing traffic operations should be confirmed by a future traffic impact study as site plans within the blocks are developed. So what I'd like to know is, are you going to complete a traffic study beforehand, or are they going to build the buildings and then you're going to decide, well, you know what, maybe we shouldn't build the additional ones, and we already have these eyesores up. Okay, so that's one of my questions. Road network. In this traffic brief, there are no planned vehicular road network improvements by either city or region. This is as per their brief. That means, my question is, I know you mentioned that you were going to ask, you know, the region whether they plan anything. Why are they mentioning in the brief that there are no plans for any expansion of Steeles, of Financial? Why is it not mentioned here? So if we have existing infrastructure, how is that supposed to support 20 to 30,000 more people? So again, it says, however, traffic operations should be confirmed by future traffic impact study on site plans as site plans are developed. So again, you're going to develop these buildings and then you're going to decide, you know what, there's a traffic problem and maybe we need to widen Steeles Avenue or Financial Drive. They have a concept plan trip generation, which doesn't appear reasonable. So basically they compared before, I'm going to try to keep this short because I only have 48 seconds. But basically the residential unit, somebody else had mentioned there's only 0.65 spaces per unit. And they're trying to endorse using transit networks, and they're trying to promote their using bicycles, which I think is ridiculous. We live in Canada. It's not California where you can bike to work. And by the way, I don't know anybody here but that works right in Brampton, but you know, if I have to bike to work, I'm going to be exhausted. I might be in better shape, but so basically the parking, the issue is we already have a problem on Coastline Drive. There's townhouses there. Right now, the townhouses, I don't know why the city approved this. They only have one parking spot. I'm just going to be very quick.
Yeah, so we haven't approved anything, okay? So all of your questions, I just want you to know, all of your questions relate to staff are going to write a report for all of those things.
Yeah, no, but
We're not going to build anything and then do a study afterwards. All the information, the applicant has provided us and you with all of the information. We will take all of that information, and that's when staff
No, I understand
start
they're not approved.
scrutinizing
Yeah,
it and doing and looking at all that stuff.
I understand that process. I meant the townhouses that were approved and built on Coastline. They only have one parking spot. Everybody in that townhouse has 2 or 3 vehicles. They all park on the road on both sides. I've called the city multiple times about that. They came and did a traffic or some type of study, and they said, no, it's fine. Only one car can pass through Coastline Drive to Financial at a time. In winter, it's a nightmare. So I hope you take into consideration this, because when the apartments are built, when people have guests come over, where are they going to park? They're going to be parking on Coastline Drive. They're going to be parking on the smaller streets because they can't park on Financial. And that's going to impact all of us residents. Thank you for your time, and I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Don't apologize. No worries. You park on, or you're on Coastline.
Yes.
So you're actually Ward 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Ward.
Yeah, so you have better counselors. But
Thank
what
you very much.
what I will do is, and I'll talk to Councillor Brar as well, and we'll have a conversation with parking enforcement as well for that property, for that street. Next delegation.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Nadir Khan, and I live on Coastline Drive, Ward 6. As a matter of fact, I'm the very first person that bought a house on Coastline Drive when Emery Homes released the divisions. And 25 years ago, my friend in Toronto, born in Toronto, raised in Mississauga, but I still feel like I'm a resident of Mississauga for a lot of the reasons that my beloved neighbors here have expressed. For community centers, my son goes swimming in Mississauga. For hospitals, Credit Valley Hospital. For several things, I can't even waste all of our time getting into it, but the point is, it's unfortunate that as someone who's proud and to live out here, and when my friend moved out here 25 years ago, I'm like, what are you doing? There's nothing out there. But after raising young children, I'm like, that's where I want to be, where there's none of that stuff that I read about that I grew up with in Toronto. And first question for you is, I've heard stats mentioned here about studies and reports, but have there been any studies related to high-density development effects in communities such as the ones that we have in Brampton? Not in Toronto, not in England, not in Georgia, but here in, I'll even go as far as Peel, Mississauga as a compromise, right? Because I think the demographics that Mississauga faces is very similar to what we face. And I think that the issues that Mississauga has gone through are the same things that we're going to experience, right? Having worked in both the public sector and private sector, I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to not only address our concerns, but to expand on our tax base, right? There's criticism that I have that, okay, public sector is not going to get it right, I'll go to executive exclusive gym. Well, here we can monopolize on the both. We can encourage facilities that are both private sector and public sector. Not one mention here is about long-term healthcare facilities, right? I do understand majority of our community here is in a situation where you have your grandparents, your parents, and your children. Born in Toronto, born as a Canadian, I'm not relying on my kids to take care of me when I get older. So where am I going to go, right? I like to be close to where they're going to be, where my grandchildren will be. Not that I have any grandchildren yet, but when that day happens. So all I'm asking the board to consider is studies that are going to impact where I live and where I'm raising my children, as well as any opportunities that we can engage to make some money for healthcare, for recreation, for education, not just residential, right? And another consideration is when you're doing those studies, if you're finding any lack of resources or there's a bias, I'm a master's student of data science from the Human Centered Studies at the University of Toronto. I will volunteer my studies for you, right? Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. Was there any other delegations? No other delegations in the book? No? Okay, I'll have to go back to 6. For 0015 here. 6 point, why am I missing it? 6.3. Got it. 6.6, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw KLM Planning Partners on behalf of Metro Central Properties, Inc., 1735 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 6. Is there anybody else that would like to come down and delegate on this matter? Please come and write your name in, state your name for the record.
My name is Amit Sheikh. I'm living in Olivia Murray Road, Brampton. So I'm in the right front of the property. So my home, when I open the home, there is a property. Now it's 15-floor building in front of my house. I don't consider, okay, no, it's development. But have you ever considered about if there is accident on the steels, what will be the happen? There is, everything will be going around the Olivia Murray Road. Last winter, that was the situation happened, that when the accident happened, both the lanes are closed on the steels, all the traffic from the Brampton North and all the way from the people coming from the east side of the and west side of the Brampton, people are going from the Olivia Murray. So that is the bigger concern for me, because when you are developing all, you can see all around the property, all the lanes are double track. Here, Olivia Murray is single lane. So that's why my concern is, if you are developing, what is the consideration on Olivia Murray? Second thing, if you see the plan, I have seen that there is no parking on the on-floor. So all the parking lot applied in the underground. Now, how much damage will be happen to the ground and surrounding properties when they are digging into the ground? So, who will be the responsible if the properties are going to damage surrounding due to this heavy drilling into the ground? So please consider this major two concern from my side and all other people who have already mentioned their issues regarding this development. So thank you for giving me opportunity. I will write in my name and thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Please stay, you have to write your name in the book. You can come on up first and do it after. Come on up, say your name.
Hi, thank you. My name's Judy Power, and I live on Nova Scotia Road. I'm the original owner there probably over 20 years now. I think what I really need our representation to know is that in canvassing with my fellow neighbors, when we just found out about this about a week, just over a week ago, none of us were notified. So probably out of maybe 100 homes, one had heard, one got a notice in the mail. So, you know, for us, it feels very underhanded that we are kept out of something so big that affects all of our lives, because when it's voting time, we, you know, we get the flyers, we hear the ads, we get door-to-door canvassing, and we are given an opportunity to vote. But here, feel like we have no say, so we really appreciate being heard today. It's a first step in kind of having some relief that maybe somebody will listen and hear us. And then I just wanted to follow up on the reports. You mentioned that you're going to prepare. When are we expecting those? Like, what's the length of time? When will we hear some feedback?
Is that your last question?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to start by saying the city of Brampton spends a lot of money to get these notices in your mailbox, up to 240 meters. 240 meters from the proposed site. The Planning Act says 120 meters. The city of Brampton doubles that and spends a lot of money to try and get these into your mailboxes. So that being said, we'll take that back and see what is kind of the issue with that. In terms of the timelines on turning this report around, Alan?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. If the question was perhaps relating to the reports that the applicant has submitted or that city staff are reviewing in association with the application, those studies are in. If the question was with respect to the reporting of when staff will be have concluded our analysis and will be coming back to this committee with a recommendation, we foresee that being some months away at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. Typically, it really depends, and we can't nail it down, but typically it could be 6, 8 months, correct?
Through the chair, if I may, to the resident, you know, certainly we've heard a lot of information tonight, and certainly we'll have to work with the applicant, but given the magnitude of this project, I would say that anywhere from, you know, 5 to 6 months before recommendation reports brought forward.
Okay. Thank you very much for your delegation.
Okay, thank you.
Last time. Is there anybody else that would like to come down and delegate? Thank you very much, everybody.
It's like the long
Sorry. If you want to ask that follow-up question, send the email to, please. Or you can wait till after tonight. We have a question period at the end of the agenda. Item 5.2, staff presentation application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, KMM Planning Partners on behalf of Metros Properties, Inc., 0 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 4. And item 6.3, the delegations. Item 11.2, the correspondence be received. It's been moved by Councilor Medeiros. All in favor? That carries. Item staff report, application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, KLM Planner Partners on behalf of Metros Central Properties, 1735 Steeles Avenue West, Ward 6, and 6.6 delegations, 11.1 correspondence have been moved by myself. All in favor? Carries. Our next item is 5.4, staff presentation, application to amend the zoning bylaw, official plan and draft plan of subdivision. Actually, before we get into this, I think there'll be a lot of people leaving. We'll wait a couple minutes and let you go. Our next item is the Gore Road, Ward 8. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. that's not this one yet. No, this is the Blackthorn development. This is still the public meeting. Okay, I think that covers pretty much all. This is, let me just go through the application to amend the zoning bylaw, official plan and draft plan of subdivision 13743446, Canada Inc., in care of Blackthorn Development Corp., 9874 The Gore Road, Ward 8, a residential development consisting of 6 blocks of townhomes totaling 36 dwellings. Francois, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the committee, members of the public, and city staff. My name is Francois Aymon Morneau, and I am the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on application filed by Blackthorn Development Corp. On behalf of 13743446 Canada Inc. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 8 and is municipally known as 7874 The Gore Road. The property is located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Fitzpatrick Drive and the Gore Road. Next slide, please. This slide shows an overview of the site and the surrounding context. The surrounding land uses are described as the following. To the north, institutional uses, such as Castlemore Public School and a place of worship. To the south, residential uses, primarily estate residential and low-density dwellings. To the east, residential and institutional uses, such as low-density residential and a secondary school. And finally, to the west, residential and open space, consisting of estate residential dwellings and Castlemore Park open space. The site is currently occupied by a single detached dwelling, and the site has access to the Gore Road. Next slide, please. The following are site visit photographs depicting the current site context, which were taken on June 28th, where you have views to the north, east, northwest, southeast, to the west, and also an image depicting the existing dwelling on site. Next slide, please. The proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision application is to facilitate the development of the site to permit a residential development consisting of 6 blocks of freehold townhomes, totaling 36 townhouse residential dwellings. Next slide, please. The following is a more detailed summary of the proposal. First, the site has a lot area of 0.83 hectares, which equates to 2.05 acres, and the development will consist of 6 townhouse blocks, 36 townhouse units, 72 total parking spaces, which will be located at grade within the attached garages of the dwellings, and a driveway. A total of 8 visitor parking will be provided. It will also have outdoor amenity space consisting of approximately 119 square meters or 390 square feet. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated estate residential and partially designated open space within the City of Brampton official plan. The estate residential designation provides a low intensity form of residential development characterized by large individual lots which do not require full urban services. It offers a rural lifestyle within an urban setting and adds to the city's diverse housing choice, as well as a sense of identity. An official plan amendment is required to permit this particular form of residential use, which is proposed. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located within the Bram East Secondary Plan, Area 41, and designated as estate residential. Section 3.1.22 of the secondary plan states that residential uses in accordance with the rural estate policies in Part 1 of the official plan are permitted, excepting that servicing by piped municipal, sanitary, and water services is not precluded. This proposed development is for a medium-density residential use. This will require an amendment to the secondary plan to redesignate the lands from estate residential to medium density in order to implement the proposed development. Next slide, please. The subject site is zoned residential rural estate 2 in the City of Brampton zoning bylaw. The residential rural estate 2 zone permits a single detached dwelling, a supportive housing residence type 1, and purposes accessory to the other permitted purposes. The residential rural estate 2 zone is subject to the following requirements and restrictions. Minimum lot area of 0.8 hectares, which is 1.97 acres, a minimum lot width of 45 meters, 147.64 feet, and a maximum building height of 10.6 meters, equating 34.78 feet. A zoning bylaw amendment is required in order to permit the proposed townhouse residential use with a site-specific zone. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to amend the zoning bylaw from residential rural estate 2, RE2, to residential townhouse CR3C, including a special section to be determined on Schedule A. This will permit a townhouse dwelling. It will also regulate minimum exterior yard width, rear yard depth, number of visitor parking spaces, exterior setbacks to private road, interior setback to lots not zoned in the same zoning category, and porch setbacks to rear lot line. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing a recommendation to council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan, as well as the Bram East secondary plan for Area 41. Next slide, please. At this time, preliminary issues that will need to be addressed include the compatibility with and potential impacts from the proposed medium density form of development on surrounding existing estate residential neighborhood. Second, potential increase in traffic on local roads such as the Gore Road and Fitzpatrick Drive. Opportunities of this development include the development of new housing stock. It will also contribute to the city's housing mix, and it will be located in close proximity to existing and planned infrastructure. These issues and others that are raised will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Next slide, please. The next steps in this application are, first, this application was deemed complete on June 14th, 2023. Staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments. Issues raised will be addressed in a recommendation report, and staff will advance a final recommendation report to council for a decision. Staff will contact and follow up with any of those residents who have spoken, written in, or advise of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. This development application can be accessed by the public through GrandPlan Online. Through GrandPlan Online, members of the public can click the search for an application link, then type the file number of the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS 2023-0017. This will bring up a file page where clicking on the File Info tab will allow all drawings and documents associated with this development application to be viewed. Next slide, please. This report associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be available online as well. Once again, my name is Francois Emomorneau, and my contact information is posted on screen, along with the contact information of the applicant, who is Maurizio Rogato from Blackthorn Development Corp., who is representing the landowner 137-43446 Canada Inc. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself, my manager, or the applicant. This concludes my presentation. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you very much. We'll go to our delegations, and we'll move the applicant delegate to last and bring up Michael Gagnon, Gagnon Walker Domes first on the docket. Michael, come on down.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of committee. It's been a very long day. I'll try and keep my comments short and stick to the presentation. Thank you to staff for receiving the presentation. And before I do get underway, I just want to make sure that all committee members are aware of, we filed a report as well in the order of 29 pages. And hopefully there'll be an opportunity for planning staff to dig into the policies that have been discussed in this submission, which deal with the provincial, regional, and local planning documents, because I know you've changed the format, Mr. Chairman, to go to this sort of a PowerPoint style, but the old presentation format with your information reports gave a lot more information at the front end. And it might just be that you've got a huge volume of applications perhaps, but if I might be so bold, the old system I preferred, and I think it was more helpful. But you can always count on us to submit a lot of papers. So I'll get underway. If you can go to the next page, Alan, please. Of our presentation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just bear with us. We're just having a technical issue bringing up the presentation. It was up momentarily and now it's gone.
Mr. Chairman, I hope that I'll be able to get back my time. As they say when we watch the Senate hearings in the United States, always take back their time. There we go. Thank you very much. Maybe while you're looking for that.
This is under 6.2. On the agenda, 6.2. And the presentation from Michael Gagnon.
Okay, we'll go to page
There we go.
Page 2. So good evening again. I'm here on behalf of the Fitzpatrick and Area Estate Residential Association. I'm going to refer to them as the Ratepayers Association. And the clients I represent are all residing on Fitzpatrick Drive, Julian Drive, and Princess Andrea Court. We've been retained by the Ratepayers Group regarding the applications to amend the official plan of the zoning bylaw and an associated draft plan of subdivision for the lands 9874, the Gore Road. And I'm joined this evening by Mr., maybe you could just salute, Mr. Ken Singh, Mr. Honorio Rocco, and Dr. Singh. They're all going to speak this evening as well. And right off the bat, and I want to thank Councillor Fortini for speaking with me today. You can always count on the councillor to touch base with ratepayers that have concerns. Right off the hop, we are objecting to the applications, which would allow 36 townhouse units to be built on a lot that is designated estate residential that will allow for only one home to be built. Next slide, please. And some of you who have been on council for a while will remember back in 2017, I was here representing the same group of landowners who were objecting to a shopping plaza that was proposed on the subject site surrounded in red. And I want to thank the councillors at the time for sort of, I guess, discouraging the applicant perhaps from going forward. I know there was an OLT hearing planned and the application never went any further, but there was some sympathy and understanding of the concerns of the residents. But what's striking is the properties in green, purple, and blue. Everybody who lives in this estate residential community has signed a petition against this proposal. every single one of them. The only ones who haven't is the applicant, of course, the property across the street, and then parcel number 8 on Julian. Not really sure why. I don't know if that person wasn't home, but there is unanimous opposition to this proposal. Next slide, please. Page 4. I won't dwell on this. The staff presentation was quite good regarding what's around the site, but I just want to draw your attention to the fact that Fitzpatrick, Julian, and Princess Andrea Court, which is the street at the bottom that's not labeled, is surrounded to the south and to the west by Humber West River and an executive housing area. And then across the Gore Road, which is, depending on which section of the road you're on, it's 4 to 6 lanes, depending on turning lanes, a development across the street that has singles and semis in it. There are no townhouses within a kilometer of this site. The closest townhouses are to the west, where it says Castle Mill Road on the left-hand side, and they're beyond this big valley. And so this is not a built form. The proposed townhouses are not a built form that is representative of anything in this estate residential neighborhood or the executive housing area or the subdivision to the east. Next slide, please. I actually kind of like this slide. It's very colorful. That's prepared by the applicant. This is showing the development. So we've got 6 blocks of townhouses, 36 units, 72 parking spaces, and 8 visitor spots. 12 are required. I'm going to go to some photographs in a second. If the cars can't be handled within this development, they're going to go onto Fitzpatrick and Julian. Those streets don't have sidewalks. They're rural cross-section. These people don't even have sewers. And the beauty of that is your own official plan calls for it. Your official plan, even your new official plan, which we're at version 2, calls for it. So I'm having trouble understanding, number one, why we're jamming so much in on this site, and we're not providing enough visitor parking spaces. And not only that, it's pretty hard to see the way the image is shown here, but some of the visitor parking spaces, dare I say, are kind of cockeyed because they're not sort of in a traditional pool of rectilineal parking spots. We've got some parallel spots. It kind of looks like they're kind of jammed in there. So we're a little bit concerned about that. But the one thing I find really amusing is the landscaped amenity area. It's 119 meters squared. By the way, the math on the staff slide, the conversion of 119 meters squared is not 390 square feet. It's 1,200, which is undersized for what I would say is 36. And if you look at how this is arranged, you've got a piece of sod, that's the green area, 3 little sort of planting beds, 2 benches that are on concrete pads, and then a walkway. It hardly counts as a generous amount of landscaping. If we can go to the next slide, please. I'm going to skip over this one. This is the staff information because I'm short on time. Go past the same thing, thank the staff for this, go through the next one, and go to page 9. So pages 9, 10, 11, and 12, and you can just sort of flip through them. This is estate residential community. This is what your OP calls a unique community. There's only a couple of them in your OP, and you go to great lengths in your OP to say this should be preserved. But it's not being preserved through this application. And I hope you'll turn it down. Now, let's go to page 14. And I'm going to just, my clients might be upset and say you're a little long-winded, but it's all in writing. I'm going to hit the high points of each one of the bases of opposition. Number one.
Sorry, you're way.
Well, I would ask for extension, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of all the people that are against the application, if you would be so kind as to indulge me.
Okay, but I would also ask that you also speed it up as well.
I will speed it up. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Number one, we're undermining a unique community estate residential area. Number 2, there's a threat to the stable neighborhood. Number 3, there's an increase in traffic and a parking shortfall. Number 4, represents an overdevelopment of the site. Next page, please. There is a conflicting driveway locations and design. This is an important one because there's a school to the north and the driveways are converging. It's not meeting regional standards. There's an incompatibility of built form and zoning provisions. This is a real good one. Minimum 3-meter rear yard against the west property line. That rear yard for those townhouses is less than 10 feet deep. I thought I was pretty bold sometimes asking for 4.5 from planning. I got to up my game, go for 3 meters. Very, very aggressive. There's also an inappropriate location for intensification. We've heard all kinds of applications tonight. You guys have got apartments being proposed all over the place that are much more suited, and townhouses, than this site. Next page. And lastly, there's a challenge with the sanitary sewer connection. This was raised in 2017. It's still there today. So with the greatest of respect, and I wish to thank the chairman for your indulgence, always a pleasure to come to Brampton. For 35 years I've been doing this. We'd ask you to refuse the application. It's not a good application. And as you know, I represent a lot of development. I wouldn't take this one on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Ken Singh. Then we have Honorio Rocco, and that's our Sarvjit Singh. Thank you, Ken, and you have 5 minutes.
Members of Council, Planning and Clerk's Department staff, on behalf of the Fitzpatrick and Area Residential Association, we wish to go on record as opposing the application to amend the zoning bylaw, official plan and draft plan of subdivision filed by 1374346 Canada Inc. to permit residential development consisting of 6 blocks of townhouses totaling 36 dwelling units at 9874 De Gore Road. This is our petition opposing the application, signed by 36 residents, by the way, that was sent in earlier. 36 resident and Brampton business owners, all of whom own property and live on Fitzpatrick Drive, Julian Drive, Princess Andrea Court. We do not oppose the development of the subject site, but for which the Brampton East Secondary Plan zoning bylaw 270204 permits, i.e. a single detached dwelling on an estate lot. City of Brampton's long-standing position is that the subject site is to be developed in a similar manner to the rest of the estate residential neighborhood within the subject site, which subject site is located. I have 4 points I want to raise. The first one is our neighborhood, L6P, is identified just by Google, as also by the city of Brampton, and Mr. Gagnon also stated, is being located within one of the selected new, unique communities designated estate residential and open space, which permits low density, low intensity forms of residential development characterized by large individual lots which does not have full urban services. 9874 De Gore Road, estate lots neighborhood, the estate residential designation in L6P offers a rural lifestyle within an urban setting, contributing to the city of Brampton limited stock of estate housing, a requirement for the growing number of Brampton 10,000 plus businesses and business owners. Item 2, we strenuously object to the redesignation. Any suggestion that the proposed 3-story built form and density are appropriate and supportive on account of the fact that the evolving provincial legislation support unrestricted intensification is ludicrous. ludicrous because nowhere does provincial legislation suggest that intensification is supportable and at the expense of all the other planning and urban design principles. Secondary plan envisage the property playing a role and function in the development of an estate residential enclave. Item 3, we are shocked to read, already stated by Mr. Ghanaian, that the draft zoning bylaw proposes that the minimum rear backyard is a measly 3 meters. Less than 10 feet, a standard rear yard is 7.5 meters, almost 25 feet. Dr. Singh will have everybody looking into his house. What did I say? Item 4, and lastly, 1, if the proposal is approved, once construction is completed, the site will be completely out of character with the rest of the neighborhood located west side of the Go Road. The existing sense of openness will be destroyed too. Similar application could be filed by 11 Fitzpatrick Drive. This will be a tragedy for the neighborhood, dramatic altering the community.
30 seconds, Ken.
3, according to the City of Brampton official plan, there are only a handful of unique communities. The proponent has ignored the neighborhood content and character. What is proposed is not compatible with the rest of the neighborhood, nor does it serve as a proper gateway into the community. The proposed townhouse units are unsympathetic to the adjacent lands used in the policy and framework that dictate the lots in Brampton will play a specific role and function, namely the estate lot. We, the Fitzpatrick Area Estate Residential Association, and me as president, object to the townhouse proposal on grounds of the reason outlined above. We are unified in our objection to this proposal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next delegation, Orneo Rocco. Mr. Rocco? Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Chairman, Member of Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Orneo Rocco, and Director of the Fitzpatrick Area Estate Residential Association. With my family, we lived at 8 Fitzpatrick Drive for over 35 years, and we love our home, and we enjoy our quiet and enjoyment estate living. Please note that I have not other financial investment in this area except my prime residence, which is my house. When considering such a request for rezoning, we must consider many issues. How this will impact the environment. In this case, is the estate lots resident that must deal with roadway traffic, and I'm going to stay just on traffic, and I'm trying to cut my speech short. Vehicles, pedestrian, mother with strollers, and noise when considering that our streets, Fitzpatrick Drive, Julian Drive, Princess Andrea Court, have no sidewalk. And the roadway is of our winding type of path. Okay, basically our road must be shared with pedestrian, cyclist vehicles, and also at time with animals, because we live, we're within a conservation area. We already have quite a big traffic at Fitzpatrick Drive with the mailbox, local resident traffic, and etc. And also the other problem that we have, and it's going to increase, it's the Fitzpatrick and Julian Drive. It's a bypass for the two traffic lights. One is on the Gore and one is on the at the Gore. So they bypass those two traffic lights, and our streets are used as a shortcut with incredibly high-speed vehicle. I do my own landscaping, cut the grass in front of my property, which is the city property, and I tell you, I had 2 close calls by high-speed vehicle. High-speed vehicle, which, according to my judgment, well over 100 kilometers an hour in those roads, and they're in blind. So it's a blind corner. It's hard to see the vehicles. See, also, there was another consideration here, and it was accepted. When the East Gate development took place, the new subdivision, which is just on the east side of the Gore at Fitzpatrick, they wanted to join Fitzpatrick with the street on the other side. The developer at that time accepted our reason not to do that, and so Fitzpatrick stops at the Gore. So. We also, we signed, I was part of the collecting petition for over a few evenings, and all the residents that we approached, they all signed the petition. They're against this rezoning. But one of their concern, of every one of them was traffic and the possibility of increased traffic. I believe we live, I live in Canada, we live in a democratic system, and I really feel it's important to respect and accept the wish of the people. In this case, almost 100% of the people, the residents of that area, are against this rezoning. So it should be really, really considered. I can only say that this is only a cash, sorry I use this word, but it's a cash grab for the property owner that keeps coming back more and cannot take no as an answer, basically. I'm going to say that. I have no problem making that statement. Thank you for listening to me, and we look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warkle. Our next delegation, Sarbjeet Singh. Sarbjeet, come on down. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarbjeet Kamboj, and I am the resident of 10 Fitzpatrick Drive. And I'm the one, or my family is going to take the more of the heat of this proposal because I'm the immediate neighbor of the property in question. I came to Canada just 22 years ago with the Canadian dream, and as an immigrant, I worked hard, and we achieved our Canadian dream just 3 years ago when we purchased this property. 2-acre land, a state home, 51 trees, and we added a few more. Nature, beautiful nature, and on top of that, lovely neighborhood. And me, my wife, and my family want to live here forever. We want to retire here, and we are planning to build a new home there. And now we have this proposal just next to me, which is just from my property line, is only 3 meters away. And my property depth is 400 feet, and we're going to see this mega structure, which is going to run away with me for 300 feet along with my property line, at least 35 to 40 feet high. And this is breach of privacy. So many people looking at us, at our backyard. Noise. And rest of you guys know what I'm talking about. It's all the quality of life which I dream, my family, and we worked very hard. We spent our all life savings, life earnings, this property. Even that time I was not able to afford it, even that we did that, because we want to live this kind of life. And my neighbors, my fellow neighbors, and we want to maintain what we are there for. That's it. This is what I'm going to tell you. And I'm getting very emotional with that because I'm going to get the more heat. I'm on the edge. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your delegation. The last delegation, Maurizio Regato, Blackthorn Development Corporation. Welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my delegation. Good evening, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I do not intend to ask for an extension in speaking and intend to be rather quick. It's been a long evening. However, because we only received the material of delegation and not yet also received the report that my friend Mr. Gagnon mentioned, I would request if the clerk could make that report available to us. And the other question of burden I would like to pose is if the clerk wouldn't mind taking my USB stick. I just have a map I'd like to share because we received the materials late in the day. I promise there are no viruses on the USB stick. Of course, Mr. Chairman, the purpose of a public meeting, in particular for myself, the applicant, and the owner, is to listen. So this evening, we've been listening, we've taken notes of the comments, and we fully expect to address all the comments. But I wanted to make some points of clarification. The first point of clarification I'd like to make is, notwithstanding the city's official plan, I'd like to suggest that every community in Brampton is unique. Each community has its unique characteristics. We oftentimes use emotional words when it comes to planning, feeding communities, fostering communities, impacts, and whatnot. The truth is, in the physical realm, we need to learn how to coexist without the need of land use conflicts. And if the clerk could please put up, is that okay, Peter? If not, it's fine. I could do without it. So these lands are rather unique, it seems to be the word this evening, in that notwithstanding some land surrounding the subject lands, these lands are in what's known as the built-up area. You've heard it countless times during your proceedings, being part of the provincial growth plan, where the majority of intensification is to take place. And these lands are located within the built-up urban boundary. They're bounded by two municipal roads, which are serviceable, Gore Road and Fitzpatrick. This proposal is being fully serviced. The other point of clarification I'd like to make is when we designed this proposal, we consulted for over a year with the region of Peel and the city. The accesses are designed properly, but of course, as we go through the technical review, if there's any adjustments required, those will get made as they should be. And the other clarification I'd like to make is this notation that we've somehow requested 3-meter backyards. That's not true. The reason there's a 3-meter exemption in the proposed draft zoning bylaw amendment is to address the double fronting units, which front onto Gore and the private road, and which front onto Fitzpatrick and the private road. The dwellings that back onto the west have a 7.5-meter rear yard, which is your parent zoning bylaw. Looking at the zoning bylaw and looking at the proposed R3C zone, we meet the majority of requirements within that parent zone. So again, this proposal's been designed carefully, has been designed with standards. In terms of the visitor parking, yes, there is a request for 4 parking spaces being reduced. Land is only made so much, and the 1,200 square foot amenity area, while some may think that's not big, some developments don't include any amenity areas or park areas. So I commend my client for allowing us to do that. It provides for adequate seating for future residents, and it's programmable for passive use to help the residents congregate. The last thing, it's been a long evening and listening tonight, and we've heard this many times, but as a practitioner in land use planning, I have to tell you, Mr. Chairman, we are in an impasse. The truth of the matter is people aren't going away, they're coming. The housing crisis is real. These days we resolved ourselves, parking spaces and garages are no longer affordable. In the south of Brampton, people are starting to convert garages into houses. So the answer is not widespread towers, ad hoc development. The answer is what we call the missing middle. And I respectfully submit to this committee that this subject site, being within the built-up area, is an underutilized site. Townhouses are ground-related dwellings. Nobody, there would be no impacts that I'm able to see, but obviously we would review that carefully. But I do believe that single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, estate dwellings, and townhouse dwellings can coexist in a community. And in fact, I would say to you that we need more of those housing choices for the young people coming up, the people retiring. Those are my comments. I'm here to answer any questions. And Peter, don't worry about the USB. I think it was a failed exercise. I just merely wanted to show members of the committee that the site is within the built-up area, and also show you a bit larger of the surrounding land use context to help aid your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Regato. So that was the staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw. There are no questions, sorry. Zoning bylaw official plan, draft plan of subdivision 137434446 Canada Inc.
care of Blackthorn Development Corp., 9874 the Gore Road, Ward 8, to permit a residential development consisting of 6 blocks of townhomes totaling 38 dwelling units. It's been moved by Councillor Fortini, receipt plus the 6.2 delegations and 11.6 correspondence. All in favor? That carries. Our next item. 6.5, delegation, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Highway 50 and 7 South Equities, Inc., Pan Green Limited Partnership, 94044635, Canada, Inc., Grey Can 9 Properties Limited Partnership, Grey Can 9 Properties, Inc., Weston Consulting, Ward 8. Our first delegation is Panjak Chopra. Panjak, come on down, and we will wait for some people to clear out as well. Before the delegations, sorry, Councillor Power, I did say that I was going to move it over to you to provide some clarification. The nod you gave me, you wanted to go onto the board first?
Oh, he's on the board first.
Okay, the conversation that we had earlier?
So,
Thank you,
Mr.
going
Chair.
on? Councillor Power. Just a minute, Councillor Fortini, I haven't recognized you yet. Councillor Power.
It's on the board.
Thank you, through the chair. First off, I want to say thank you to the area residents for bringing this forward, but also thank you to Weston Consulting and Michael Vanny for all the work that they've done. They've done, the residents have spoken, and as councillors, we always want to listen to the residents and follow what residents want. Development is important, and employment lands are important, and we understand that, and it's a big challenge for us. So I do have an amendment to a motion. I don't know if I can read that now.
For sure.
Sorry?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in regards to this application, the Planning and Development Committee will approve the recommendation report this evening, but prior to staff bringing forward and acting a zoning bylaw, staff will work with the Region Appeal and the applicant to confirm that truck access be restricted from the Gore Road and shifted to Highway 50. Thank you, Chair.
Can we get the amendment on the board so that people can see it? And I'll just try to explain before we go into the delegations. Do we have it in?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the proposed amendment wording is the approving the staff recommendations, I understand, with an additional recommendation that prior to the implementing zoning bylaw amendment coming forward, that it be conditional on the fact that staff work with the Region Appeal and the applicant to confirm that truck access be restricted from the Gore Road and shifted to Highway 50. So that would be the amending motion.
Okay, so just so the residents are clear, and I know that Councillor Power worked extremely hard with a lot of the residents and staff in trying to come up with something that worked. And essentially what this is doing is that prior to, the zoning amendment that's coming August 9th, Councillor Power is saying to our staff that in this short little time frame, we need you to do a lot of work in trying to ensure that the truck traffic will stay on Highway 50, work with the Region Appeal, because that's a regional road, to get that full move access into the subject site, so that there is no truck impact into specifically the residential dwellings and Gore Way, sorry, or Gore Road. So, Steve, did you want to provide some?
If I could, through the
Yeah,
chair.
please.
Just to be clear to sort of manage expectations, it's my understanding that August 9th is the next council meeting. Is it council's direction that staff work with the region and the applicant to fulfill this direction prior to that? And the only reason I mention it is we're in sort of prime vacation time right now, and getting hold of regional staff and whatnot could be a bit challenging. So I might suggest a friendly amendment to keep it as prior to the implementing zoning bylaw coming forward to council. So give staff enough window to work with everybody.
Okay.
And bring that forward.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. Okay. So thank you, Councillor Power, with the intent that if anybody was here to talk about truck traffic, I think Councillor Power has just helped with that, and maybe no need to delegate on that. But if there's anything else, we want to hear you. Councillor Power, thank you. Councillor Fortini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I was going to suggest the same thing. And also, as Vice Chair, Public Works at the region, I will contact them. And I did have some talk with the residents, and they were okay with the industrial, but it was always about the entrance. Are we still going to be holding I think an entrance for the employees, or we want that completely removed off, only employees? Completely removed off. So, okay. So I'll contact also the region as Vice Chair of Public Works and work with them and work along with you. And thank you, everyone, for work. Thank you. And I'll second the motion. Thank you.
Planning, no need to second. So we'll go to our delegations. Panjak Chopra. Welcome.
Thank you, Pankaj Chopra here. Thank you, Mr. Power, Councillor Power, and Councillor Pat Fortini for helping us with this. So can we be assured that this topic is finished for good? Is it? That is. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Next, Parmod Rohan. Parmod, welcome.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Pramod Ralan. I'm staying at 22 Seacliff Crescent, just adjacent to the concerned area. Now, since this has already been taken care of, whatever my objection was, not allowing the trucks to come on the Go Road, everything is done. I really appreciate everybody for that help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Next is Veena Talan. Oh, sorry, Ann Narinder.
Oh, that's my husband. Don't worry. He couldn't come.
He doesn't get
He had to look after the patients. I actually left him at the clinic. I didn't know it was going to be this late. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. We're a pretty easygoing community, about 125 homes, and Calvary Circle only has this access. And we were really scared that if all the trucks are allowed, then we would have no way out, in the winter especially, because the traffic really backs up. And our only thing was, please don't allow extra traffic on Go Road, because our city has built a lot of townhouses just north of us, north of Queen, and all that traffic goes right by our homes. And my house is the first house that is right next to the Go Road, and the noise is unbearable at times. And especially when we have snowstorms, we can't even get out of our subdivision in time to get to work. So thank you for looking into this, and we were told that they were planning to have one truck every 3 minutes on this road. So thank you again for listening to us, and we appreciate it. And hopefully it'll go through.
Thank you, Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Power.
Our next delegation, Franca Cotillo. You're good? Thank you, Councillor Power. Our next delegation, Tony Cotillo. Thank you, Councillor Power. Our next delegation, Ruby Malik.
Let's come all the way
hello, and good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you. I did have a great big long speech ready, but I just wanted to really appreciate you all for listening to us. This was a very important issue for all of us, but we just want to say thank you so much for listening to all of the residents. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Power. Mukesh and Sarita Puri. Mukesh? Not here. I'll bring up Raj before Michael. Raj Sharma. Come on down, Raj.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Power and Mr. Fatini. I had a little chat outside also with them. And I was also here further to address the same thing, to oppose the entrances to the Go Road. Just one suggestion, because I was on the first, I think, on the first meeting as well, I spoke here. The question is, obviously, whosoever going to develop, they have the right to, put an application through and all that. There should be some kind of a study done prior to that application that they can send it to the neighbors, and instead of saying, well, let's do it, if people oppose it, it could be sometime people cannot come, all of them. But even we are a handful of us, but we are representing the whole community. Because every evening we get together, and Mr. Fortini, one time he was there along with Mr. Power, and we took them around in the neighborhood. And we are very caring community, and all of them, they are there from almost from the beginning. And you know how, like every resident or whosoever purchase anything, they do their own study. So we did the similar thing, believing if this is the place, because we are right from the beginning, took the place and got it built. So we did our own homework in the thinking it's a small community on the back, conservative area on the back side. And on the same time, there was a big nursery on the front. And there was always a sign, there's big trucks not allowed on the Go Road. So thinking with all that, we thought, it would be nice to probably eventually, good for our kids, at least we can retire in this place. Then all of a sudden, new application comes in. So what they do, all of a sudden they say, we're gonna do 2 entrances on the back. But first of all, builders, they are more planned than the residents. Like we did our planning to looking for the right place for us. But guess what? They had 2 entrances from the Highway 50, which is nursery. They had, I seen them for 30 years before, I came in there. And now when they put the application up front, at that time, why they did not think, they haven't even opened those places, like they built the places. There's no business yet. And they already put the application for the rear side, another 2 entrances. So they're looking for big trucks, which is an ideal thing on Highway 50 to go to Highway 427, go 407 and the north and all that. And instead they want to come to the community that's from the back residential area and come and block all that. As one of the other neighbor, my friend, they mentioned that we have the only single entrance and exit to the Go Road from that place. So thank you again for Mr. Power and all that. But Mr. Fertini mentioned me something that though, yes, there's gonna be a motion forward to block this, but question is, are we assured they're not gonna appeal or there's not gonna be any appeal against it? That's what the question that I have. Or they're gonna have they have the right to appeal and we're gonna continue with the same process. And because if 1%, if that happens, the neighborhood, all the neighborhood, even if say 120 people, it's like a 500 plus people because every resident have 3-4 family members and the kids. And not only this, our area does not have no park, in the corner and no playing place for the kids. So just so that you know, most of the Calvary Circle, we go to each other place to walk around even in the evening. And in order to go to Manswood, why? Because I seen the kids. My kids are grown up, but I seen the kids, the poor kids, so they have no place to go. So they go take the Go Road and then go to Calvary Circle to make it home. And having them put them into this, dangerous place where going to be truck after truck coming through. We're looking for, creating a big danger for the kids. So keeping all the in consideration, I would say when we assuring us, we really appreciate that. If you're assuring us that there are not going to be no entrances, and we will further request that it should be some kind of a thing as saying there won't be any appeal. They would not have a right to appeal for that. I don't know if they have the right or not. So that's what, will satisfy the neighborhood. That's all I want to ask. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. Steve, do you want to touch on the appeal?
Yeah, through the chair, certainly the landowner applicant does have the right to challenge a decision of council before the OLT. If that were the case, we would have to go through those OLT proceedings to find out what the ultimate decision would be.
Thank you, Steve. And Councillor Parry, the area needs a park, so if you can work on that next, that would be great. Michael Vanny. Michael? Welcome, Michael.
Good evening. I'll keep my remarks super short. I guess this is not exactly the decision we were looking for this evening, but I will discuss with my client and with our traffic engineer, and we'll continue to work with the region and with the residents on this matter. We have had 2 public consultation meetings in addition to the statutory public meeting, so we have heard the residents and we have worked with them. There's a bit of a difference of opinion, as you've heard, on the access to the core, but we will continue to work with the region on that, and we will take that back over the next few weeks. I just do want to remind the committee and everyone here that the staff report does confirm that the access does meet all technical and safety standards. It was approved by recommended for approval by both the city and the region. The GORE was recently upgraded to a urban cross-section, widened and upgraded, and all technical studies have been provided. But, hearing the notations of the residents, we will continue to work with them, and that's all I have to say this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. This time I'll bring item 7.1, staff. Nope. Staff report, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Highway 50 and 7, South Equities, Inc. Councillor Power. Can I bring the report forward or no? You would like to ask, this is questions of the delegations.
I was going to give some closing remarks.
Do you want to do that when I bring the report forward and it's actually on the, okay. 7.1 staff report, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Highway 50 and Highway 7 South Equities Inc., Pan Green Limited Partnership 9404635, Candidate Grey Can 9 Properties Limited Partnership, Grey Can 9 Properties Inc., Weston Consulting, Ward 8, file OZS 2022-0036, to permit 36,159 square meter industrial warehousing development, location 83868412 Highway 50. That the staff report application to amend the, I'll bring that forward, I'll read out the motion with the amendment after, because Councillor Power would like to provide some remarks. The report is before us.
It's on. I believe it's on. Through the chair. So one of the things when I looked at this, and I want everybody to understand that this is a committee and a council decision. This was something that we've done all day, and it came down to the last minute. It wasn't just one person over the other. And I want to thank my council colleagues for working with me on this. But when I think about the application, my street is a horseshoe just like Manswood. And if there was trucks going across the front of that, that would make me as upset as you guys are. So I want you guys to know that it's a unified council. We're working together to do the right things for the city of Brampton, and it wasn't just for this area. We've been doing this in the last now 9 months, and we're all working together. So thank you to the staff who provided comments, thank you to the clerk, and then thank you to our council colleagues who really stepped up and worked with us today, because this came down to the last minute today. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you, Councilor Power. That the staff report application to amend the zoning bylaw, Highway 50 and 7 South Equities, Inc., Pan Green Limited Partnerships, 9404635 Canada, Inc., Great Can 9 Properties Limited Partnership, Great Can 9 Properties, Inc., Weston Consulting, Ward 8, file number OZS 2022-0036 to the Planning and Development Committee of July 31st, 2023 be received. That the application for the zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Weston Consulting on behalf of Highway 58 and 7 South Equities, Inc., Pan Green Limited Partnership, 9404635 Canada, Inc., and Great Can 9 Properties Limited Partnerships, Great Can 9 Properties, Inc., be approved on the basis that it consists with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region Appeal official plan, the city's official plan, and for the reasons set out in the recommendation report. 3, that the amendment to the zoning bylaw generally in accordance with the attachment 11 to this report be adopted. 4, that no further notice or public meeting be required for the attached zoning bylaw amendment pursuant to section 34 of the Planning Act. I need to scroll up. That no further notice or public meeting be required to the attached zoning bylaw amendment pursuant to section 34 of the Planning Act, RSOCP 13 as amended. That prior to the zoning bylaw amendment coming forward for enactment, staff be requested to work with the Region Appeal and the applicant to confirm that the truck access be restricted from the Gore Road and shifted to Highway 50. 6, that the following delegations, applications to amend the zoning bylaw, Highway 50 and 7 South Equities, Inc., Pan Green Limited Partnerships, 9404635 Canada, Inc., Great Can 9 Properties Limited Partnership, Great Can 9 Properties, Weston Consultant, Ward 8, file OZS 2022-0036 to the Planning and Development Committee of July 31st, 2023 be received, and that the delegations also be received. I'm not going to go through the names of the delegations and correspondence. You members of committee, you have that before you. Record a vote. Record a vote, Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the members of the committee, recorded votes been requested. All in favor, please stand. Those present in person is Chair Paleshi, Deputy Mayor Singh, Councillor Tour, Councillor Power, Councillor Keenan, Councillor Brar, thank you. Councillor Visante, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Fortini, how do you vote?
Yes, absolutely.
That's a yes, thank you. Councillor Medeiros, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Santos, how do you vote? Councillor Santos? Councillor Santos, how do you vote? So in accordance with the practice, I've called 3 times, so Councillor Santos will be shown as absent because I don't know what her vote is. She may have stepped away momentarily. That carries 9 to 0 with 2 absences with the mayor, so it carries.
Thank you very much. There are no other business, no referred matters. All correspondence has been dealt with. Councillor question period. Are there any members of council that have any question related to anything that was on the agenda today? Seeing none. Public question period. Is there anybody in the public that would like to come down and ask any questions of anything that happened here today? Welcome.
My name is Rajendra Saini. I'm also one of the residents. In last 22 years of my journalism career, I have attended many delegations here. Most of them are heated, and the result is not desirable. But I'm really glad and want to thank you all of you for this result. And I know of the hard work done by Rod and other people at the council level. It was not so easy. But thank you so much. That's all I want to say on behalf of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. His question was, oh, you have a question from the public, okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, if there's other questions first.
No, go ahead. Sylvia's delegated so many times that she can wait.
A question from the public that's come in from Allison. This is in regards to item 5.2 and 5.3 on tonight's agenda, the proposed applications at Steeles and Financial Drive. There's questions for the developer. One, what are the sizes of the proposed public parks in both the two proposed developments? Two, please provide details on the creation of 15-minute complete communities in context of these two development applications. Three, please discuss the overall net increase to the total jobs planned for the employment area. And then one question for the City of Brampton. Since many residents are away due to the summer holiday and school break, can we please request a follow-up town hall meeting in the fall with the City of Brampton's mayor, councilors, and the developer, along with the residential stakeholders, as well as the area businesses such as Canon? That's the question.
I can say that the area councilors can work together to see if we can come up with something. As for the other questions, they'll be captured within the staff report.
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
Sylvia.
Hello. So this is actually for the development more towards Steeles and Huron Terry. It's just a general question on where I can find information on the electric vehicle charging standards and how many we want per development. Because there's a development of 640, it looks like there were 0 plans for putting electric chargers for any of the spots, and that seems like an issue for a development that's going in the 2020s and decent chance the building can get running in the 2070s or later. So they can reach me.
That's the one on the south side you're talking about?
Yeah, it's the one on the south side just across
that
from
was on
Shoppers
the agenda.
World.
Okay. Somebody can reach out to Sylvia, please. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody else who'd like to come down? Nick, you coming down? Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks, Councilor Power. Thank you, everybody. There are no closed sessions. Adjournment. It has been moved by Councilor Barr. Adjournment. Our next regular scheduled meeting will be Monday, August 28, 2023 at 7 p.m. or at the call of the chair. All in favor?